Hey guys, tonight we slip into the pre-dawn hush of a city that runs on secrets, where ink stains outnumber scars and collars weigh more than crowns. Picture cracked oil lamps casting jackal-shaped shadows across vellum scrolls, the smell of oak gall ink sharp enough to make your eyes water. Before we start, a quick reality check. You'd last about 3 minutes here before accidentally treasoning yourself with a misplaced comma. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time below. Let's see who's braving midnight storms versus tropical dawns while we wander these alleys. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your fingernails dig into a splintered desk, ebony stains blooming where yesterday's inkpot spilled. Dawn's first blush creeps through warped shutters, turning each breath into visible frost. The proclamation draft before you smells of iron gall and rushed decisions. 23 new edicts requiring royal seals before breakfast. Historians still argue whether ancient scribes actually used fermented barley to erase mistakes, or if that's just tavern talk from soused scholars. A thread from your collar catches on the quill's goose-feather veins, that same loose strand you've ignored for weeks. The royal tailor warned you about the gold-wrapped silk's fragility back when your voice still carried morning decrees without cracking. You snap the quill tip mid-stroke, black splatter ruining line, 17's marriage annulment clause. 7 years of this, blotting mistakes with rabbitskin paste, while regiments clatter past your window toward the border. Your left pinky traces the proclamation's margin, a nervous habit since the day they draped this embroidered noose around your neck. The ink here isn't waterproof, a fact you learned the hard way during last winter's tear-streaked oath of succession. Some say parchment makers added urea to make the surface glossier centuries before anyone invented proper desk blotters. Your stomach growls, reminding you the baker won't light her oven for another half hour. Not until the watchmen finish their 6th perimeter sweep. The frayed collar thread sways like a hangman's rope in your drafty chamber. You consider cutting it clean, but rebellion here comes in millimeters, not grand gestures. 3 fireflies blink against the window grill, living punctuation, marks for the unsent letters piling beneath your floorboard. Did you know certain Mediterranean cultures believed fireflies were the souls of dead scribes? Makes you wonder what yours would look like, flickering faintly over unsigned pardons and redacted troop movements. A moth lands on the drying scroll, its wings mirroring the watermark's falcon crest. You freeze mid-reach, suddenly 12 years old again, watching your father's ceremonial robe disintegrate as moths ate through his accumulated lies. The collar tightens when you swallow, stitches straining like overstrung lute chords. That awkward moment when your most valuable possession is literally choking the truth out of you am I right? Through the thin wall comes the snuffle snorts of the archive clerk's sleep apnea, a sound that's haunted your nights since the harvest tax fiasco. Historians recently found Cicero's letters complaining about a snoring servant, proving some irritations transcend millennia. You press a palm against the crumbling plaster, wondering if scribes ever plotted murders through these very walls. The answer's probably yes, but let's not dwell on that during your performance review. The first trumpet blast slices through the cold trumpeter's lips, still numb from night watch duty. Your knee jostles the desk, toppling the ink pot you forgot to reseal. Black puddles swallow half of Edict 14, the one about restricting tavern singing after curfew. Quick math says you've got 13 minutes before the chamberlain arrives. 18 if his arthritis is acting up again. That stubborn thread taps your collarbone like a metronome as you scramble for blotting sand. Your reflection in the inkpot's residue shows circles under your eyes dark enough to pass for coal. Cross-continental trade routes once carried cosmetics made from crushed ant eggs. Bet they didn't have shadows this majestic. The sand spills unevenly, creating miniature dunes over phrases like hereby decree and punishable by exile. Somewhere far below, a scullery maid's laughter echoes up the service shaft, a sound so foreign it takes you 3 heartbeats to recognize it. The thread snaps without warning, its severed end curling like a dead spider's leg. You press the lifeless silk to your palm, remembering how the crown prince smiled during your binding ceremony, teeth glinting like a bear trap's jaws. Dawn proper hits your desk now golden light, exposing every ink blot and hesitation. The final edict demands increases in parchment taxes, right below today's date written in your shaky hand. Date formats changed 13 times during the last dynasty, but that's a problem for future historians digging through this mess. You rub a smudge, realizing too late your thumb still bears yesterday's oath ink, cerulean bleeding into black. Boots thunder up the outer staircase, right on schedule. The chamberlain will smell the panic sweat before he sees the ruined scrolls. Your collar's raw edge itches where the thread parted, an open wound in silk and duty. You stand deliberately slow, back protesting after hours hunched over royal whims. The door bursts open as you're pocketing the severed thread, a tiny act of defiance that'll cost you 7 days' wages later. Well, the chamberlain's breath reeks of yesterday's garlic and tomorrow's disapproval. You spread your hands, ink-stained fingers trembling slightly over the still damp proclamations. The city's voice is ready. His snort could frost wine. Let's hope it doesn't choke on the words this time. As he gathers the scrolls, you touch your broken collar and think of fireflies, of silent things that glow brighter when the world tries to snuff them out. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, a baker's daughter kneads dough while humming tomorrow's forbidden ballad. But that's a story for another dawn. The needle pricks your thumb before you feel it, a bead of red blooming on faded linen. You press the wound to your lips, the tang of iron mixing with beeswax from the thread. 3 stitches left, always 3, though the collar's tear keeps widening like a hungry mouth. Firelight dances across the mending basket. Remember those winter nights in the guild hall. You'd huddle with apprentices around heat steel boxes, those tin marvels filled with hot coals that rich ladies carried. Guild rules said no talking after curfew. But how we whispered through frost-stiffened lips about stolen thread counts and the king's gout. The thimble slips, a metallic chatter against stone. Your mentor's voice ghosts through the room. Still hands make straight stitches. Still minds weave truths. You almost laugh. Mistress Lyra said the same thing while embroidering tapestries for the Duke's failed rebellion, right before they dragged her away. Historians still argue whether her floral borders hid battle plans or grocery lists. A cold draft snakes through the window, lifting threads into trembling arabesques. You stab the needle too deep, piercing the old tailor's mark beneath the collar. 17 interlocked circles, symbol of the Melody weavers who vanished when the Silk Roads dried up. Rumor claims they taught spiders to spin Chinese letter grade thread, though the Royal Archive swears that part's metaphor. The fireplace embers crackle, each pop sounding like a snapped loom string. Your fingers move without you now, twisting crimson thread through 300 years of heraldry. Remember that troubadour who joked about stitching the king's speeches directly into his underwear. They found him floating in the dye vats, lapis blue and very dead. You yank the knot tight, the collar's edge puckering like a scar. Shadows stretch across the floor, black fingers reaching for your pile of abandoned decrees. Somewhere beyond these walls, bakers knead treason into rye loaves, and guards count absent friends on rusted abacuses. The mended collar chafes fresh, stitches digging into your pulse point as the last candle drowns in wax. Dust coats your tongue before you see the shelves, that particular grit of vellum decay and mouse-nibbled oak. Your boot heel grinds against a stray wax seal, the imperial crest, now smeared across flagstones older than the monarchy itself. The archivists' lamps died decades back, so you read by the faint green glow of foxfire moss. It clings to ceiling beams like jealous lovers. Remember those bioluminescent fungi experiments at the academy. Queen Amara III funded them hoping to replace torches. Her failed moonlight vault project left us with pickled mushrooms and a dozen poisoned librarians. Your thumbnail catches on a scroll clasp, its bronze oxidized into malachite teeth. The papyrus unfurls with a sound like dried skin peeling. 18 lines in, you hit the censor's work. Black ink pools over entire paragraphs, though someone's scribbled corrections in beetroot juice along the margins. Here ratified, eternal silence regarding half the words swallowed by silverfish. Your pulse quickens at the remnants of a royal seal, clay stamped with a scarab ring. They taught us in scribe school how Egyptian kings used scarabs to sign decrees. The beetle's path, mimicking the sun's daily rebirth, never mentioned how their clerks chewed the clay to test its purity. Left teeth marks in 3 treaties on display at Cairo's museum. A draft slices through the stacks, fluttering loose, a sketch tucked between codices. Charcoal lines depict a loom wider than city gates, its warp threads strung with human hair. The annotations are pure chaos, recipe for squid ink adhesive. Love poem to a dissolute archduke, accounts of that time. The council taxed left-handed citizens extra for mirrored penmanship. Historians still argue whether the infamous left-handers' revolt began over quill fees or bad puns. Your knee cracks as you rise, the sound echoing down aisles choked with fragmented oaths. A cracked treaty box leaks iron filings. They spark against the floor as you pass. Legalists used to weigh truth against metal shavings, believing lies disturbed magnetic fields. You're pretty sure that's why Lord Vizier Eben keeps a lodestone in his court robes. Or maybe he just likes the way it makes his keys jingle. The forbidden alcove's padlock yields to a hairpin clever girl. Inside smells of sour wine and betrayal. Correspondence between some long-dead herald and, is that the signature of the people's voice, uprising leader? But the dates are wrong. These letters predate the rebellion by 9 years. Your thumb rubs the paper's watermark, a dove carrying a scroll in its beak. Same motif as the mourning pins issued after the Great Silencing. Cobwebs cling to your collar as you retreat, their silk merging with your mended threads. You nearly miss the loose floorstone, its hollow gasp freezing you mid-step. Inside rests a child's practice slate. Chalky symbols march across its surface, part alphabet lesson, part desperate cipher. The last line repeats a single phrase: kings drown in shallow truths, each iteration angrier than the last. Dawn's first light stains the high windows as you exit. The scroll fragment burns against your ribs, its edges crumbling like old vows. Somewhere beneath the city, a forgotten aqueduct carries whispers upstream. You'll need better ink to rewrite this story. Realgar red won't cut it. Maybe that apothecary still stocks squid sacks down by the docks. The dockside apothecaries, shutters stay bolted, 53 barnacles cemented where hinges should be. You pivot toward the harbor's yeasty heartbeat. Instead, sourdough fog clinging to your borrowed cloak. 12 stone steps lead down to Basalt Bakeries Limited. Its founders carved the vaulted oven from a single megalith. Medieval Constantinople had similar rock-hewn bakeries, though theirs doubled as emergency bunkers during siege warfare. This one just doubles as a rat sanctuary. Warmth hugs your face like a drunk ant as you enter. Rye flour swirls in sunbeams, each mote a tiny anarchist plotting descent onto the royal flour reserves. The head baker's voice booms from a cloud of steam, bribe, or trade. His left eye patch bears an embroidered croissant, homage to that time. He tried inventing spiral-shaped hardtack for Navy expeditions. The project failed when sailors kept catching their beards in the pastry screws. You slide a honeycomb across the counter, stolen from the palace apiaries last Tuesday. His flour-crusted fingers probe the wax. Always figured you heralds sweet-talked your way upriver, he grunts, splintering off a amber chunk. This'll buy 6 loaves, baked quiet, no questions. The ovens yawn behind him, bricks blackened by 2 centuries of burnt offerings. Workers shuffle past with peels longer than war lances. One apprentice mutters a work song about contested grain tariffs, set to the tune of a banned fertility hymn. Historians still argue whether the bread and ballads rebellion started over flour taxes or off-key chanting. Your purchase arrives swaddled in linen smoother than a vizier's lies. The 5th loaf feels lumpy. You wait until reaching the salt-crusted alley to crack its crust. A membrane of dough sticks to your fingers, papyrus wrapped in sheep's intestine. Smart prevents ink from bleeding during baking. Roman spies used goat bladder for the same trick, though their messages often tasted suspiciously of urine. The scraps handwriting jitters like a hanged man's final dance. 3 pairs watch from Eastern Tower, 2 living, 1 stone. Your neck prickles recalling that weathered gargoyle above the garrison, the one with your father's chin cleft. A burnt raisin dislodges from the loaf, its wrinkled face staring up from the cobbles. You crush it absent-mindedly while scanning rooftops. Movement flickers in a 4th-story arrow slit, too quick for pigeons. The parchment crumbles as you pocket it, sheep gut and all. Oi, Herald. The baker leans from his doorway, tossing a crescent roll. You catch it left-handed, his remaining eye widens. They never told me you were a sinister man. He slaps the doorframe, dislodging a flour avalanche. 20 years back, magistrates taxed us southpaws, extra for unholy mirror writing. We baked protest codes into the bread's air pockets, took them 6 months to notice. The roll splits open in your fist, no hidden messages, just apricot jam. A consolation prize. You nod thanks as his laughter follows you uphill, each chuckle dusted with defiance and cardamom. Shadows lengthen across the merchant quarter. Your cloak's flower trail glows faintly in dusk light, terrible for stealth. Excellent for any assassins craving funnel cakes. The eastern watchtower's silhouette bleeds into twilight, its observation slits now gleaming with premature stars. Lanterns or spyglasses. Both mean you're dining on cold guilt tonight instead of hot stew. The gut wrapper scrap burns a hole in your sleeve. Stone observers can't chase you, but that third watcher's identity itches worse than lye-soaked parchment. Maybe the old tailies hold truth that certain statues blink during midwinter eclipses, or maybe the tower's just got a very still guard with excellent bladder control. Either way, best revise tomorrow's proclamations by starlight. Again, Moonlight braids itself across the river's skin, your breath fogging the air as you shred the day's proclamations. Royal edicts curl and die in the current. 23 parchment, tongues drowning in silence. Tiberius once decreed all caught fish must wear miniature Senate togas. This feels equally absurd. Your fingertips prune as you kneel at the water's edge, cold seeping through knee patches, mended 7 times over. A torn scrap floats back like a spectral hand. Loyal subjects shall report any. You plunge your fist into the black water, gritting teeth against the chill. When emperors outlawed free speech, Romans whispered secrets to carp in public fountains. Rumor says the fish grew fat on treason. The current tugs your sleeve. A silver perch breaches beside your wrist. Its gills flare, spewing a bubble that pops against your palm. For a heartbeat, you swear it forms a word. Traitor, you recoil, wet silk, slapping stone as moonlight fractures on ripples. Not even the bloody fish are neutral, you mutter, scrubbing your hand on moss. Muffled laughter drifts from a passing skiff, its lanterns doused to avoid patrols. Someone's smuggling more than moonlight tonight. You fumble for dry parchment in your satchel, fingers brushing the queen's stolen wax seal. 3 weeks since you inked false approvals for that spice, traders' dates. Historians still argue whether the Silk Road collapsed due to tariffs or a particularly sassy caravan leader. Your quill hovers, words crowding your throat like stones. The river answers with a wet gulp as another edict sinks. Something brushes your ankle. You leap up, stubbing your toe on a half-submerged statue. Its marble mouth spews water instead of warnings. Medieval plumbers called these gargoyle gutters stone prophets, believing they'd sing during floods. This one just gargles. A shadow detaches from the opposite bank, ripples betraying its passage. You freeze as an otter paddles past, clutching a scroll fragment. Its dark eyes glint ink, staining those tiny paws. 30 heartbeats later, it vanishes downstream. Otters once inspired a short-lived papal decree against thieving river imps. The heresy trials that followed were messy. Your teeth chatter a rebel rhythm as night deepens. The eastern tower's lanterns wink, 1, 2, 3. Stone observers indeed. You press against the crumbling embankment, rough-hewn blocks digging into your shoulder blades. 16th century masonry had better manners. The fish returns. It circles your submerged toes, dorsal fin slicing moonlight like a blade. When you reach down, it darts away, disappearing beneath the drunkard statue, your fingers close around slime-slick stone and a crevice. Barnacles tear your skin as you pry loose a pebble-sized clay tablet. Cuneiform glyphs swirl under your thumb, too worn to read. Sumerian, Hittite, definitely not municipal. Some obsessive probably tossed it here last week. Local collectors pay well for river relics. A 1946 hoax claimed the Thames hid Hammurabi's lost fishing laws, complete with lobster penalty clauses. Wind riffles the water, sudden and vinegar sharp. The otter's stolen scrap surfaces nearby. ink bleeding into a cloudy tea you wade in up to your shins, breeches clinging like a second conscience. The parchment dissolves before you can grab it, leaving behind a stranded word. Betray noted, you tell the night. Your voice startles a duck into flight, wings slapping the water in condemnation. The tower lights extinguish one by one. Dawns a lurking idea behind the brewery's silhouette. You're squeezing river mud from your hem when motion flashes upstream. A ripple too straight for nature. A dozen scrolls bob toward you, their wax seals intact. Royal couriers sometimes misplace cargo when bribes outweigh execution risks. You snag one with your belt knife, blade glinting like a smile. The broken seal reveals a grain tax hike effective yesterday. 89 words of bureaucratic spite. You feed it to the drunkard statues, watching legislation turn to pulp. Maybe Tiberius had the right idea if every edict came with a complimentary trout. Cold nips your ears as you retreat uphill. The otter watches from a willow's roots, gnawing on something that glints. Moonlight catches its prize, your missing quill nib. You bow ironically. It chitters back, a sound like parchment tearing. Halfway to the scribe's gate, you realize your right boot squelches with every step. The fish's warning lodges deeper than river silt. Traitor, they always blame the messenger. You pause beneath a street lamp, its sickly glow revealing damp footprints. 18 steps back to the river. 27 forward to safety. A bell tolls the false hour, watchman changing shifts. Your boot gurgles as you choose the third path up the tanner's alley, where stench masks all sins. The moon drowns itself in clouds as you vanish, one more shadow with sodden cuffs and stolen words. Sunlight stabs through the tannery's reek as you climb each step, squeezing river water from your boot. The bell tower looms ahead, its rusted chains dangling like unspoken threats. Noon's supposed to shatter the air here, 12 bronze roars to pace the city's heartbeat. But the ropes hang limp, rusted iron leeches bleeding orange down the stones. Your heel catches on a warped stair, 29 steps conquered, 30 to go. Medieval monks would toll bells during plagues to shatter miasma. It worked as well as incense and prayer. A pigeon explodes from the belfry, wings clattering against the silenced cage. The city graybeards always claimed the great bell could shatter glass at 3 leagues. You're betting they never tested it. The trapdoor resists, splinters biting your palms until it groans open. Dust motes swirl in the sudden light, catch in your throat like unvoiced truths. Chains coil beneath the bell's bronze skirt, corroded links straining against their own weight. 16th century metalworkers called this flaw devil's breath, air pockets in the casting, dooming the metal to crack. You lean over the bell's lip, peering into the cathedral square below. Roasted nut vendors fan their braziers. Children dart between horse carts, guards slump in the heat. Normalcy drapes the scene like a too small cloak. Your damp collar chafes, reminding you of the scroll fragment dissolving in your boot. The bell ropes, fibers scratch your palms, horsehair and hemp, braided to withstand 2-ton tugs. Rumor says Tudor hangmen reused old bell ropes, claiming the fibers remembered how to drop. You brace your foot against the wall, pull just enough to feel tension bloom in the cable. The chain shrieks, a metallic wail that sends sparrows fleeing. Herald. The shout spiders up the tower, a guardsman's spear, glinting 4 stories down. You freeze, praying the bell's shadow hides your face. Sweat trickles down your neck, following the exact path as yesterday and the day before. Wax from the Queen's seal still clings beneath your thumbnail, a crimson crescent of complicity. The guard mutters something about rats, turns back to flirting with a laundress. Her wicker basket holds folded linens and a telltale scrap of parchment. Networks expanding faster than you planned. 8 days since you slipped that first note into the garrison's bread loaves. Historians still debate whether ancient couriers used actual doves or just fast runners with feathers glued to their hats. You crouch to examine the rusted pulley, fingers brushing something sticky in the gears. Wedged between iron teeth, a moldering cheese wedge. Bell grease, the old caretaker would have chuckled. Gouda quiets the squeaks better than lard. You pocket it reflexively. 16 years of tower, duty habits die harder than monarchy. 3 floors below a door slams. Boots hammer the spiral stairs, too many to outrun. Your gut clenches, an old friend. The bell rope sways as you grab it, solemn as a noose. One hard yank could wake the city, or snap the frayed hemp. You glance at the cheese in your hand, absurd and possibly edible. Shame to waste good curds, you murmur, tossing it toward the stairs. The guards skid on the greasy step, swearing, as their halberds clatter against stone. You're already halfway out the belfry window toes, finding mortar grooves worn by generations of pigeon feeders. Wind whips your tunic as you descend, rough stones tearing threads from your hem. The square tilts below, a dizzying quilt of rooftops and hang-drying tapestries. That one with the purple ducks, yours. Last week's coded message about tax inspectors. Your boot slips, knee slamming into a gargoyle's leering face. Its mossy tongue licks your bloodied shin, a grotesque baptism. 3 more drops hit the baker's awning, marking your path like breadcrumbs. You'll send him extra flour tomorrow, if tomorrow comes. The alley swallows you sour with the dyer's vat runoff. Behind, shouts ripple across the market. Ahead, the sewer grate where you hid the seal engraver's tools. Your pulse thrums in your wrists, matching the far-off rhythm of hammers at the coppersmith's forge. Chains clink in the tower again, this time without human cause. You press against a vinegar barrel, counting heartbeats until the guards charge past. A shadow detaches from the opposite wall, mimicking your crouch. The coroner's assistant's widow, her mourning veil pinned with a telltale brass clasp. She extends a hand, palm up. The cheese. You surrender the grimy wedge, watching her vanish into the tanner's quarter, no doubt bound for some diplomatic lunch where aged dairy becomes a weapon. Renaissance food-poisoning plots make modern politics seem downright polite. A rumble shakes the cobblestones, the bell tolling at last, not its full voice, a wounded moan that shivers windowsills and teeth. The guards must tripped the mechanism in their haste. 5 labored bongs, each weaker than the last. The 5th sounds suspiciously like a hiccup. You emerge blinking into the square, blending with gawkers drawn by the noise. A child points at the bell tower, where THE Chinese letter, S black veil flutters from an arrow slit. Your chest tightens, that familiar ache, as the cheese completes its mission, unseen. Shopkeepers resume haggling, the crisis already fermenting into tavern tailies. You linger beneath the cobbler's awning, pretending to examine leather soles. Your right boot's beyond repair, split at the seam, river water pooling around your toes. A shadow falls across your feet, you tense. Herald. The words barely a breath, the spice merchant from Section 3, his breath reeking of cinnamon and fear. He presses a scroll case into your hand, warm from being carried against skin. The seal's already broken, a jagged crack through the queen's crest. You unroll it slowly, feign a cough to hide your lips moving. 15 words, 7 of them blacked out with charcoal. The intact ones form an ugly question, the kind that gets heads piled in market squares. The merchant's already gone, lost in the crowd. You stare at the mutilated parchment, its gaps echoing the bell's stifled cry. Somewhere above, a rusted chain snaps, the sound swallowed by the city's endless hunger for noise. The cheese grease adrenaline fades, leaving your hands steady as you flatten the scroll against a cobbler's bench. Purple dusk seeps through the shutters, sharpening the charcoal gaps in the queen's orders. Someone's redacted 7 damning words, turning a death warrant into a drunken word puzzle. You huff paper cuts stinging your thumbs and nearly miss the feather drifting down. Black, glossy, longer than your index finger. It lands on the mutilated parchment, quill ready. You glance up, window latch dangling open. The crow perches on a frayed rope display, its beak click-clacking against something metallic. Not a trinket, a needle. Thread dangles from its tip, same blue as your unraveling collar. Mended or maimed always unravels twice, the bird rasps. Or maybe that's your sleep-deprived brain mistaking cause for poetry. You pocket the feather, ignoring the nursery rhyme buzzing in your skull, and reach for the needle. The crow cocks its head, obsidian eyes, reflecting 2 warped versions of your face. Midnight blue thread shimmers between you, leading from its claw to your patched elbow. Bargain. It croaks clear as a judge's gavel. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth, the queen's arsenic sweet pear tart still haunting your taste buds. 16 years of palace protocol scream, ignore it. But 16 nights of stolen records whisper, grab the damn thread. The needle pricks your palm before you decide, blood welling like ink. The crow flutters to your shoulder, stabbing the needle into your collar with clinical precision. You hiss, cold steel grazing your jugular, as it sews through fabric and skin. 13 stitches, quick as spider legs before the thread snaps. Crowns rot faster when threaded with lies. It intones, plucking a hair from your head. Mine now. The alley tilts. Memories surge, a flax field burning under the old king's banner, smoke choking the harvest moon. Your mother's voice singing nursery rhymes to drown out screaming. Scholars still argue whether medieval peasants used crows to smuggle messages, or just blamed them for missing buttons. The bird tugs your hair, yanking you back to the present. The scroll in your hand feels heavier, its redacted sections now glowing faintly. The crow drops the needle into your open wound, a perverse trade. Next payment at moonfall. It rasps, launching into the greasy twilight. You stare at the bloodied needle. Roman engineers supposedly trained ravens to deliver siege plans, though their success rate involved more roasted bird than strategic advantage. The thread in your collar itches, burning cold. You scratch and freeze. The stitches form letters. Air, oath, ash. 3 words destined to fray by dawn. Across the square, a clatter of armor. Guards swarm the bell tower like ants on honey cake. Your boots squelch toward the sewer grate, threads pulsing with every step. The crow watches from the gibbet post, preening its stolen locks into a miniature nest. Trader tax was 30% under the third queen. It calls too casually. You pause, genuine historical fact, or avian mockery. Tudor tax records confirm the number, though they blamed horse leeches for the deficit. The crow's chuckle follows you underground, rasping through mossy bricks. You count steps to drown it out, 37 before the tunnel forks. Left, the apothecary's cellar. Right, the river gate where the baker's daughter mends nets twice a week. Your collar tugs toward the right, thread glowing like foxfire. You obey. The needle's still in your palm, rust blooming around the wound. Venetian glassmakers once smuggled poison in similar needles, though theirs didn't hum with unsettling warmth. The river's stench intensifies, dead fish and wet stone. A child's laughter echoes, but the docks lie deserted. Your thread surges, yanking you behind a moldy barrel as guards clatter past. Their torches illuminate the crow, dipping its beak into a puddle reflection, warping into a hook-beaked crone. She winks, then shatters into ripples. The needle pulses. You exhale, and sew the word ash onto a floating plank. It catches the current, twirling toward the smithies, where firelight eats secrets. 3 heartbeats later, a distant hiss as water quenches hot metal. Half price for rookery residents. The crow muses, now perched atop a drowned statue. 8 worms perverse. You fling a river-bleached pebble, missing by a laughable margin. Its talons flex, revealing a scroll case stolen from your belt. The damn thing unrolls itself midair, charred edges glowing. Second payment. The bird croons, plucking a silver hair from its plumage. You lunge, boots slipping on algae. The scroll flutters into the water, ink bleeding as it sinks. The crow drops the hair which sizzles against your wrist, crowns to kindling. It recites, fragmenting into a murder of ordinary birds. Their wings churn the sewer stench into something resembling storm air. You grip the still glowing needle, its eye now threaded with your own gray strands. The collar threads throb, air nearly faded. Footsteps approach slow, deliberate. You press against the statue's mossy plinth, needle raised. The baker's daughter rounds the corner, her net full of eels and secrets. She blinks at your makeshift weapon, then nods toward the eastern channel. Next tide brings the flax burners. She whispers, tossing you a moldy loaf. You catch it left-handed, right still clutching the needle. The crow's laughter follows you into the brackish dark, 13 wing beats echoing off stone. Somewhere above, a bell tolls once. Ghostly, relentless. The needle cools, thread gone slack. You bite the loaf, hoping for a message, a key, a scalpel, just caraway seeds and rye. The crow's voice floats down from a gutter spout. Bargains require 3 payments, Herald. You swallow dry bread and start counting bruises. The indigo vat reeks of fermented leaves and desperation, its surface rippling like a storm-tossed sea. You plunge the royal cloak again, watching truth bleed into threadbare velvet. Egyptian dyers once stirred vats for pharaohs with their feet, a fact you regret knowing as dye seeps through your boot cracks. A girl giggles behind stacked linen bolts, her pitch mirroring your sister's before the fever took her. You blink, suddenly 8 years old, kneeling in sunlit fields where mother's dresses billowed like escape flags. The memory curdles when your sleeve brushes the vat, indigo, swallowing another patch of skin. 3 dips for lies, mutters the dyer, a hunched woman spinning wool into shadow. Her distaff clicks like a ticking clock. 5 for half-truths. 10 for whatever's festering in this broth. You finish, wringing dye so dark it gleams purple-black. Historians still argue whether medieval dyers added urine for color fastness or just liked the stench. Your nostrils vote yes on both counts. The cloth squelches in your grip, revealing embroidered eyes along its hem. Dozens of them, staring despite the dye. Your collar itches where the crow's needle left its mark. Across the workshop, a woodlouse drags a blue-stained breadcrumb toward a crack in the wall. You relate. The dyer snaps her fingers, 3 knuckle pops sharp as crossbow triggers. Juniper ash, then beetroot. She orders, thrusting a pestle into your chest. Unless you want the Duke asking why his cloak whispers treason. You crush berries and bitterness, the mortar's rhythm syncing with the girl's hopscotch steps outside. She's singing the rhyme now, the one about crows knitting with soldiers' hair. Your pulse spikes, fingernails blue as drowned royalty. Ottoman sultans supposedly wore riot-inducing purple until dyers switched to mollusk mucus. You'd kill for that problem right now. A blister bursts on your palm, dye mingling with blood. The mixture hisses, releasing a curl of silver smoke. The dyer freezes, crone-sharp gaze darting to your stained hands. Prussian blue, She breathes, knife already at your throat. Only one family knew that recipe before the massacre. The hopscotch song stops. Your boot heel finds the vat's edge, ready to kick. 17 years since your mother ground pigments in a country hut. 12 since soldiers torched it for housing unclean arts. You open your mouth, preparing lies, when the girl's laughter peals again. Closer, too close, she skips through the doorway, flinging a fistful of yellow petals onto your dye vat. Marigolds. They float like accusing fingers, gold on dark water. The dyer's knife trembles. Old Nan says blue hands talk to ghosts. The child chirps, smiling at your stained fingers. Can you ask my brother why he stopped drawing sheep on the cellar walls? The pestle slips from your grip, crushing petals into poisonous pollen. The dyer sheathes her blade, grinding walnut shells into a paste that smells like burnt hair. 5 more dips, she growls, tossing a vinegar-soaked rag at your face. And muzzle the brat before I brew her into mordant. You scrub your hands raw, the dye stubborn as guilt. A tendril of blue crawls up your wrist, forming branching patterns like the oak where your sister buried her doll. The vat's surface ripples, reflecting the crow perched in the rafters. It drops a berry into the dye, which bursts into a tiny inferno. Non-flammable, it chides, preening singed feathers. Avert your eyes, the nice burn begins now. The girl shrieks, pointing at the blooming fire. You upend the vinegar barrel, acrid steam choking the air. The cloak survives. Your eyebrows don't. By sunset, your hands look weaponized. The dyer declares the treason-stitched eyes drowned enough, though you catch her blessing the cloth with rowan twigs. Payment is a thimble of sap-green ink and a warning. They'll hang you for paler blues than this. Outside, the girl waits with a buttercup chain. Historians love debating whether coded messages were woven into crusader tunics. You let her crown you with dying flowers, each petal whispering run. The crow swoops low, snatching the garland midair. Its caw shreds the twilight into something sharper than knives. You walk east, stained palms curled around stolen dyer's notes. Behind you, 3 rooftops away, a shutter slams like a jaw strap. Your collar chafes. Somewhere, a vat boils over. The northern gate looms, its iron spikes crusted with frost and old blood. You count 33 breaths as the sentinel's lips move, repeating edicts only he hears. Gatekeepers in medieval York chewed licorice root to stay silent, a fact that explains his twitching jaw. Or maybe it's the cold gnawing through layers of wool and resolve. His blade's hilt winks in the dawn, your family's falcon crest, gleaming beneath grime. Historians still argue whether guard rotations matched prayer hours or alehouse closings. The debate feels academic as you step closer, boots crunching ice like shattered teeth. New edicts for the watch. You ask, knowing he won't answer. His eyes track a raven circling overhead, its shadow bleeding into yours. You've heard tales of sentinels swallowing their tongues to avoid confession. His stained teeth suggest worse choices. ink-stained fingers twitch, itching to trace the engraved wings. You mouth recognize me, a useless plea against his sealed lips. 16th century sentinels allegedly carried vinegar-soaked sponges to bite during interrogations. This one's breath smells of rye and rusted chains. A gust slaps your face, flinging a scrap OF Chinese letter against the gate. Yesterday's proclamation about grain taxes, now shredded by wind and apathy. The sentinel's jaw clenches, veins throbbing as he mouths the words. His sword arm shifts, exposing a scar where the crest's tail feathers should curl. You freeze. That scar matches the tear in your father's last letter, the one that arrived after his trial. The wind dies, leaving silence thick enough to choke on. Gatehouse gargoyles drip meltwater onto your collar, each drop colder than the dyer's vat. The sentinel's throat moves a word, shaping itself behind yellowed teeth. Remember your father's hands carving that same crest into a cherrywood box. The memory stings worse than the dye still burning your palms. A child's shout echoes from the ramparts, a snowball splattering near your boots. The sentinel flinches, hand flying to his hilt. For a heartbeat, you see the boy he was before duty petrified him. Then his face hardens, lips forming a bay, like a stuck music box. Frozen mud sucks at your heels as you retreat. Somewhere beyond the wall, a blacksmith's hammer clangs like an accusation. The sentinel resumes his silent recitation, loyal as a wind-up toy. When you glance back, his sword hand trembles, or maybe it's just the dawn playing tricks. Cold seeps into your bones long before sleep claims you. The sentinel's trembling sword hand burned behind your eyelids. Dreams come gnawing, not the gentle kind. Crumbling spires pierce a sulphur yellow sky, each stone branded with dates from the olden calendar. 1492 glows on a falling buttress, same year Columbus sailed, using a lie about India's spice routes. You've always wondered why no one mentions the fleas in his ship's grain stores. Towers fold like soggy parchment, their collapse slowed to a nightmare crawl. Shadows dart between falling stones, weaving lightning into cracks. One figure stays solid, a silhouette mending ruptures with threads that hum like plucked harp strings. 13th century, masons watermarked their bricks with goat blood, an obscure practice. This shadow mirrors too perfectly. You taste copper, or is that yesterday's cheap wine lingering? Watch the third keystone. The shadow croaks, its voice a blend of creaking floorboards and your dead tutor's cough. A spire fractures above, chunks bearing numerals 1066, Norman conquest dates, predictable as a baker's dawn yawn. The shadow snaps its glowing thread, catching the debris midair. Medieval architects hated right angles, did you know? Preferred curves to confuse evil spirits. Its laugh smells of burnt almonds, the same poison that killed Duke Frederick in 1503. You reach for a falling brick, marked 79 AD, Pompey's last gasp. Your fingers pass through volcanic rock, Focus on what's unraveling. The shadow chides, reweaving a vault with threads pulled from its own ribcage. Historians still argue whether ancient towers leaned by design or bad math. The debate feels moot as a Norman-era gargoyle winks at you, its grin stretching to Victorian proportions. Shadows shift, revealing the mender's face. Your breath hitches. It wears your mother's eyes if she'd aged 30 extra years and chewed belladonna for fun. 3 generations of collars. She hisses, threads multiplying like spider silk. All that starch, but no spine. A lightning strung tapestry forms, showing your great-grandfather signing edicts in a room wallpapered with crow feathers. Meltwater from the gatehouse gargoyles trickles into this dream puddles, reflecting upside-down spires. The shadow kicks a stone, labeled 1417 Council of Constance's heresy trials. They burned Jan Hus for saying truths out loud. It whispers, "Wonder what your silence will burn." You wake gasping, palms clutching a sweat-damp pillow. Dawn stains the ceiling bloody. Somewhere, a blacksmith's hammer resumes its metallic judgment. Your inkwell has frozen overnight. The quill snapped mid-word. Traitor, half scrawled on a decree's draft. You snap the page's spine, feeding it to a candle, already nursing other secrets. The shadow's final whisper clings like cobwebs. Next time, bring better questions. Your boots crunch gravel, still frosted with dawn's reluctance. Each step toward the wellhouse tastes of rust and regret. That crumbling archway hasn't sheltered a decent drink since the Romans left their lead pipes behind. Funny how conquerors always poison the wells before retreating. The bucket chain dangles like a broken spine, its iron links whispering clink-clunk in the wind. You lean over the parapet, chapped hands gripping stone worn smooth by 8 centuries of desperate grips. Far below, water glints, a coin flicked into darkness. Historians still argue whether olden wells were holy sites or just convenient trash pits. Your answer comes quick. A rat carcass bobs beside something ivory. Might be a goat's knuckle, might be a bishop's pinky. The crank protests, its handle slick with moss. 3 full rotations before the bucket catches halfway jammed by what feels like pride and poor craftsmanship. A sharp yank sends wood splintering, the pail plunges. The crash echoes like china in a drunkard's pantry. Silence follows, the kind that prickles neck hairs. Then voices, not from below through the well stone. Muffled oaths in Latin, or maybe Old Saxon. Hard to tell when the words twist midair. Your left ear catches infirmus, right ear hears infidelity. A cold draft snakes up your tunic, reeking of wet parchment and solder. The bucket resurfaces, cradling a shard of lead. Etched letters swim under algae. Drusilla, 3rd wife of Emperor Claudius. You snort. Classic curse fodder, your 7-year-old self scrawled worse on the privy walls. But your fingers tremble pocketing it. Second hall brings up muck and a half-dissolved scroll. The wax seal displays a lion-headed serpent, symbol of the olden Collegium Mutiny. Obscure trivia time, that cult mixed prophecies with laxative tonics for spiritual cleansing. The parchment disintegrates as you unroll it, spilling ash that stings like pepper. Coughing doubles you over, eyes watering. The well's whispers sharpen, bind him silence, choke him roots, unspool him. When the fit passes, your collar's tighter, waistcoat button, imprinting an angry crescent on your sternum. Third drop, the chain snaps. Your elbow deep in frigid water before realizing you reached for the falling bucket. Dreams of falling towers flash, but there's no shadow mender here. Only your reflection rippling into another face. High cheekbones, hooded eyes. The likeness lasts 3 heartbeats, then blurs. Something brushes your submerged wrist, slimy yet deliberate. You recoil, slamming your skull against the crank. Stars bloom along with a memory. That night in the archives, finding Duke Frederick's missive about a stone-throached vault, his florid script suddenly makes sense. The well's rim digs into your spine as you scramble back. Historians love debating Roman concrete recipes, but none mention the real secret. Mix volcanic ash with human silence, binds better than mortar. Your soaked sleeve drips, each splatter etching faint runes in the dust. One match, that's all it would take. Burn the curse shard, watch its poison smoke curl, but your tinderbox stays buried under 3 layers of pocket lint. Cowardice smells of saffron and mildew today. You exit sideways, never turning your back. The well's hum follows, seeping into your boot nails. By the time the gatehouse appears, your tongue feels wool-wrapped. Could be the curse, could be yesterday's bad mutton. A child's ball rolls past, stitched from the same blue velvet as council drapes. You kick it harder than necessary, watch it vanish into the butcher's alley. The well's laughter licks your neck, warm as a drunk's breath. 3 blocks east, your pace falters. That lead shard burns through your coat, pulsing like a second heart. When you finally dare touch it, the etched name has changed. Your own stares back, each letter a shallow cut. The collar digs deeper. Market smells hit first, burnt honey cakes, and sheep's wool soaked in last week's rain. Your lead-weighted coat sags like a guilty conscience as you push past spice carts. Vendors hawk saffron by the thimble, each cry punctuated by copper scales hitting countertops. You almost miss the silence when it comes, a hush rolling through the square like dropped mercury. Every head turns toward the fig seller's stall. A cloaked figure drops 7 coins into the merchant's palm, each clink resounding like a gavel strike. The strangeness isn't the payment. Medieval markets ran on bartered buttons and broken promises. No, it's the way the trader recoils, clutching those coppers like scorpions. Damp wind flutters the stranger's hood. Their collar flashes, same grosgrain twist as yours, same missing 3rd stitch under the left ear. Your hand flies to your throat before you can stop it. Mended thread bites your calluses, a tactile echo across the square. Bad omen, mutters the ribbon seller beside you. She stabs her needle through crimson silk a little too vigorously. Last time collars twinned like that plague took half the city. Historians love debating medieval market regulations. None mention the real law. Merchants paid taxes in dried crickets during lean winters. You open your mouth to ask, but she's already vanished behind a wall of hanging samite. The stranger glides toward the tanner's booth, crowd parting like penitents. A child's abandoned top spins at their feet, its painted eyes tracking you. 3 stalls down, the fishmonger wraps a trout in yesterday's proclamation, inking scales over your own words. You edge closer, boots sticking to spilled mead. The tanners handing over a lambskin map know, a glove, the kind archers use for falconry. Their whispered exchange hisses like wet logs. One word slithers through Guildhall. Another midnight. The stranger's sleeve lifts, revealing scars shaped like Armenian coffee grounds. 20 paces back, your browsing apricots gone mealy with age when their cloak snags a nail. The collar's stitching glints, expert, knots mirroring your own haphazard repairs. Scholars still argue whether doppelganger myths began as grain tax protests. Right now, you trade 10 years' wages for a different theory. Your thumb finds the lead shard, still throbbing through layers of wool. When did it grow warmer? The stranger pivots, sun catching their profile. High cheekbones, hooded eyes. That same blurred face from the well's black mirror. Trash clatters down an alley, distraction enough to make them glance west. You seize the moment, darting behind a wagon load of indigo vats. Breathe through your mouth, unless you fancy smelling like fermented snails till solstice. They're moving again, past the coopers hammering, into the silk-draped gloom of Mercer's Row. You're 3 steps behind when a hand clamps your shoulder. Careful, crier. The locksmith's breath reeks of anise and arsenic. Folks wearing that mark either end up hanged or haunting. His thumb rubs a bald patch above his ear, a twin to your collar's missing stitch. Before you can speak, he melts into a gaggle of nuns, arguing over lace prices. The stranger halts at a dyer's shop, its awning sagging beneath rainwater and spiderwebs. Their gloved hand brushes a hanging skein of yarn, scarlet darkening to arterial crimson. You're close enough now to see their collar's embroidery, same staggered French, not spelling courage in a dead alphabet. Wind shifts, carrying the scent of salt and burning cedar. Their hood falls back. Black hair spills free, streaked with lines of gold like misplaced sunlight. Not a stranger. Your mother's mirror image if she'd aged past 30, if she hadn't swallowed a bottle of grief after the birthing bed stole her voice. If her portrait in the hall hadn't gathered dust and lies. Recognition hits like bad claret, sour and slow. They're mouthing words now, the same chapped lips that sang you lullabies in Lombardic Latin. The crowd's roar surges, drowning whatever truth they offer. 5 heartbeats, that's all the time you get. Then market noise crashes back, apples rolling, dogs howling, a butcher sharpening knives with theatrical zeal. The space beneath the awning stands empty save for a single copper pin. You bend to retrieve it, fingers grazing cold metal. The head bears your family's crest, arms sliced through with a quill's nib. Your father's favorite brooch, the one buried with him 14 years back. When you rise, the glove rests at your feet. Inside, 3 feathers fused with human hair, a crow's primaries, streaked with silver. You pocket it before the tanner notices, his glare sharper than any blade. The sun dips below the cooper's roof, casting long shadows that snag at your heels. Market gossip swirls around you. A woman swears she saw a 2-headed calf born at dawn. Useful omens left town generations back. Now we get livestock oddities and politicians. Slipping into a tinsmith's doorway, you examine the feathers. Their silvery sheen isn't tarnish, it's writing. Microscopic words loop along each barb, page numbers from the city's forbidden archive. Someone went through a lot of trouble or madness. A shriek cuts the air. Half a dozen hens escape their crate. You join the chaos, dodging feathers and curses. By the time the baker's boy corrals the last bird, your sleeve holds a new stain. Egg yolk or philosopher's mercury, hard to tell these days. Twilight thickens, stalls shutter their wares. Only the stranger's copper pin glows, warming against your pulse point. You turn toward Guildhall's spires, their weather vanes squealing in the rising wind. Somewhere, a loom's shuttle clacks. The locket sears your chest, a coal stolen from time's furnace. You fumble with its broken clasp, cold metal biting your nail beds. Inside, ashes, always ashes. Queen Anya's remains, or so they claimed when her ladies-in-waiting sealed it. Medieval mourning jewelry often held perfume, but royalty. They got creative with cremated relatives. Silver filigree snags your collar's mended edge, the same pattern as the stranger's glove. A pearl rolls down your tunic, nestles in a cobblestone dip like a misplaced tear. You crouch, fingers brushing its nacreous surface. Cold seep through your knees, a puddle left by last night's storm. Lost something, crier, the vermin catcher, leers, his polearm dripping rodent tails. His gaze snags on the locket. Careful folks say that trinket curses anyone who touches it past midnight. He spits. The glob sizzles against wet stone, the acidic tang of rat poison and desperation. You pocket the pearl, its weight all wrong. 9 carats, more like 9 sins. Historians still argue whether European queens used actual cremains in lockets or just symbolic charcoal. The answer's gritting between your molars now, wind gusts scattering ash across the bridge. Particles glitter like corrupted snow. One lands on your tongue, salt and fire, and a whisper of cedar oil. Your vision blurs. Memory stings, 8 years old, sneaking into the relic chamber. Mother's voice sharp as she yanks you back. That box holds a dead queen's breath, not for clumsy hands. You'd imagined literal air trapped in silver. Felt cheated when the archivist showed you ash-filled pendants. Now you envy that innocence. A carriage rumbles past, mud splattering your boots. The driver whips his team, horses foaming as they drag a cage of clucking hens. You press against a shop front, wet mortar soaking through your shoulder blades. The locket's chain chokes you, each link a tiny hourglass. 3 streets from Guildhall, you detour into a chandler's alley. Moonlight stripes wax pillars, sweating in the chill. Your thumb finds the pearl again. South Sea, fresh water, doesn't matter. What matters is the groove along its equator, too precise for nature. A drunk staggers past, belting tavern songs off-key. You wait for his reek of sour ale to fade, then bite the pearl. It splits, revealing a coil of parchment. Unroll it against a candle maker's sign. Words swim in the greasy light. 30 days hath September. No, that's crossed out. Beneath, a child's sketch. Stick figures beneath a tree, one crowned, one holding a scroll. Their joined hands form the city's seal. Boots scrape stone behind you. You crumple the parchment, swallow it whole. Honeyed wax coats your throat, or maybe that's panic. They bite, you know. The chandler looms, her apron stiff with tallow. She nods at the locket. Queen's trinkets made by goldsmiths who added venom to the alloy. Anti-thief measure. Her laugh rasps like a saw through bone. Course, she died wearing it, so who's the real fool? You back away, palms raised. She shrugs, returns to pouring mutton fat into molds shaped like saints. 50 steps later, your gut cramps. The parchment burns hotter than any secret should. Guildhall's gates rise ahead, rusted shut. Through the bars, a courtyard littered with scrolls. Edicts rotting in the rain, your voice decaying syllable by syllable. The locket throbs, chains sawing your collarbone. You clutch it, a fisherman gripping a sinking net. Metal buckles, ash drifts downward, spelling something in the mud. Yards of Old Norse poetry, a recipe. The wind steals it before you decipher the first rune. Dawn bleeds across rooftops. Somewhere, a blacksmith's hammer strikes an anvil. The pearl's casing grinds between your teeth, chalky aftertaste of obsession and poor life choices. You lean against a well, its stones carved with names of dead oathkeepers. The locket finally stills, a serpent fed. Your reflection wavers in the water below. A stranger stares back, collarless, lips stitched with gold thread. You blink, the image dissolves. Just your own haggard face, wearing the same dread as mother's portrait. Chimney smoke blots out the stars. You trace the chain's imprint on your neck, each welt a ghostly fingerprint. The parchment sits heavy, a second stomach full of unspeakable verbs. A door creaks open across the square. The vermin catcher emerges, hauling a sack of twitching cargo. He freezes, eyes widening at your ash-streaked tunic. Opens his mouth, thinks better of it, vanishes into the gloom. First, bells toll, time to choose Guildhall's mute archives or the healer's bitter tonics. The locket makes the choice for you, its broken chain slithering down your torso. Links plink into the well, counting seconds. As they fall, you catch the end of the chain, seconds before it follows. Forged silver cuts your palm, a crimson ribbon unfurling toward the water. The pearl's remains glow in the wound, mapping constellations only fools would follow. Somewhere below the ashes stir. Rain drums the oath stones as you kneel, each drop a chisel striking olden sins. The square's slate slabs shiver beneath your palms, their carvings blurring, then sharpening. 16 names surface through moss, then 23, then 7 in bold strokes that glow like fresh wounds. You know these titles, or you should. Guildmaster Pelter, Chancellor Vilne, Lady Crake of the Western Weald. Historians still argue whether medieval oathstones listed traitors or saints, but your calloused thumb knows truth. These grooves were cut in fury. Lightning cracks the sky, a skeletal hand illuminating the clerk's trough. Its murky water swirls with ink and rain until your face ripples into view. Gold threads cinch your lips shut, tiny stitches pulling tighter with each gasp. You recoil, knees skidding on slick stone. 4 heartbeats pass, the vision fades, but your mouth tastes of metal and myrrh. A gutter overflows, spewing splinters of yesterday's proclamation. By order of the council, the words dissolve mid-threat, rag pulp, returning to its sheepish origins. Your collar sags, sodden linen chafing the locket's imprint. 3 kids dash past, their boots kicking up a spray. One shouts something about flooded crypts and frog armies. You almost smile, until a shingle plummets from the apothecary's roof. It shatters near your left knee, scent of crushed pennyroyal burning your nostrils. The downpour intensifies, needling your shoulders through threadbare wool. You scramble beneath the oath arch, its keystone carved with a dove mid-sneeze. Quirky fact, medieval masons hid comedy in solemn spots. This one's beak's angled to drip on unwary priests. Your heels hit something soft, a mossy satchel abandoned against the plinth. Inside, 7 wax-sealed jars labeled potable rainfall, city approved. Right, because drinking street water worked so well during the plague of bumbling optimism. Thunder growls closer now. You squint through the deluge. The oath stones gleam unnaturally, as if scrubbed by spectral hands. One slab tilts upward, revealing a hollow crammed with scroll casings. Your fingers close around the nearest tube. Beechwood slick with algae. Inside, a genealogy chart ending abruptly at a crown prince named Ozymandias. Fringe archivists whisper that name, claiming it's cursed to summon sandstorms if spoken aloud. You mouth it silently, chapped lips forming the O. Wind howls through the arch, snatching the scroll into a maelstrom of debris. Something clinks at your feet. A pilgrim's badge, tarnished silver, depicting a saint holding his own severed tongue. You pocket it, the metal searing through your trousers patch. 12 paces left. The council well gurgles like a dying bard, its rims etched with forgotten penalties for oathbreakers. 7 lashes for lying at dawn. 3 days mute for omitting titles. Your reflection reappears, gold stitches glinting. A hand grabs your elbow. The candle maker from the night before her face, a web of tallow burns. They're coming for the collared ones at dusk, she hisses. Go north, find the cooper who boils his hoops in wine. Before you can ask, she bolts, her clogs slapping puddles in Morse code. The storm pauses, breath held. In the hush, you hear it. A dry rasping like parchment rubbed raw. It's coming from your throat. You press 2 fingers to your windpipe, feel the vibration. Not your voice. Something inside reciting the 7 vanished titles. Clouds rupture anew, a cold baptism. The locket flares against your chest, its chains stitching steam into the air. You press it to an oath stone. Friction births a sulphurous stench, and for half a heartbeat, the slab becomes a mirror. 2 figures glare back, one robed in crow feathers, one cloaked in council colors. They're sewing a child's lips shut with gold wire. You stumble back, skull cracking against the arch. Vision swims, but the afterimage lingers. That child's eyes yours. From the year mother caught you mimicking the town crier, 7 years old, crafting proclamations about biscuit taxes and mandatory nap times. Hail peppers the square marbles of ice bouncing off every surface. You lurch toward the Guildhall, boots sliding on names that refuse to stay buried. The promised storm, the cleansing. It's not water's work. It's the city itself, scrubbing its skin raw to expose the rot beneath. A puddle grabs your ankle, hungry as a beggar. You sprawl face, first into liquid ice, chin striking stone. Blood mingles with rainwater, a pink swirl around your reflection's lips. The gold threads unravel, slowly, each stitch popping like a distant musket shot. When you rise, the square stands empty, oath stones dry despite the tempest. 7 titles glare up, unflinching. Somewhere north, a wine barrel explodes, its report echoing through the shuddering streets. Your mouth opens, a silent scream for the cooper, the conspirator, the child buried beneath duty's weight. The gold threads dangle from your teeth, their ends curled like question marks. The tavern door groans, its hinges weeping rust onto your wrist. Inside, smoke hangs like a wet tapestry, threads of oak fire and malted secrets. You count 7 tankards on the bar, each foam cap cresting like tiny tsunamis. The third one's carved with interlocking axes, that rebellion symbol from the year of 20 blunders. Medieval alehouses used such marks, though historians still argue whether they signaled safe havens or targets for the crown. A barmaid slams a pitcher, spilling suds over glyphs, depicting a phoenix mid-vomit. Storm's got the kegs sighing. She grunts, wiping hands on an apron stained with 87 kinds of regret. You nod, fingers tracing the nearest tankard's grooves. Cold seeps through, a metallic itch crawling up your arm. The brewer emerges, sleeves rolled to elbows. His forearms ripple with scar tissue, map of olden burns from rogue casks. Fact coopers once charred barrels to season them. This one's using wine instead of fire, the sour tang pricking your eyes. He nods toward a back room where shadows chew the edges off a splintered table. You follow, boots sticking to floors that haven't seen soap since the Great Porridge Uprising. The cooper's voice rumbles low as a disturbed crypt. They say you're hunting quiet truths. He thrusts a tankard at you, rebel sigil glowing faintly. Drink, then look. The ale hits bitter, like licking a penny forged during a solar eclipse. You gag, but he grips your wrist. Down it. Last batch was blessed by a blind nun, or cursed. Always mix those up. Liquid courage, more like liquid audacity. Your throat constricts, then relaxes. The room tilts, wood grains swirling into a familiar face. The tankard's reflection shows not your weary mug, but a smoother version. Same eyes, same cursed locket, but cheeks free of the crow's foot tattoos, marking heralds of the long silence. 3 generations back, the cooper murmurs, great-grandsire's time. He flips a coin, revealing a portrait. The face matches your warped reflection. He tried burning the collars. They made him drink molten gold instead. A drip falls from the ceiling, hitting the tankard's rim. The vision shivers, now showing the ancestor pounding a barrel stave into a magistrate's skull. Rebellion foam sprays his beard. Quirky tidbit, ye oldie brewers sometimes spiked ales with hallucinogens for customer loyalty. Works better than punch cards. The cooper leans close, reeking of fermented poor decisions. Your reflections fraying. Collars got you time-stitched. He taps the rebellion sigil, now bleeding black ink into the ale. Break the pattern before. A shutter slams, open wind, vaulting a torn proclamation onto the table. Reward 4 collared malconts, screams the header, your current face crudely sketched beneath. The cooper snorts. Artisans getting worse. Last week, he drew the duke with goat legs. Voices erupt outside, boots crunching gravel. The barmaid coughs 3 times, signaling trouble's arrival. The cooper shoves you toward a cellar hatch. Through the vats. Mind the death cap mushrooms. You descend, rungs slick, with something best left unidentified. The brew room welcomes you with a burp of humid air. 7 massive casks loom, their iron bands etched with names of dead monarchs. One leaks crimson liquid. Smells like raspberries. Hopes like arsenic. Your reflection glints in a puddle again, that youthful face flickering beneath yours. You whisper grandsire's lips move in tandem. Old blood meets new rebellion, a family heirloom of doomed gestures. The locket burns, ash seeping through your shirt. Footsteps thunder above. A dropped tankard rolls, its rebel sigil spinning like a feudal compass. You dive behind a cask, labeled batch 666, regrets and rosemary. The cooper's voice booms, distracting the guards, with tailies of rogue mead. Silence stretches, then snaps. Moonlight slinks through a crack, pointing to a cask with fresh carvings. Your initials. Inside, a child's doll wearing a collar woven from gold threads. Its tiny hand clutches a scroll fragment. Break the 7th seal with eucalyptus and spite. The tavern door slams. Your reflection winks in a drip of ale 3 generations dissolving into one. Somewhere, a wine barrel explodes, predictable as history's punchline. Moonlight bleeds through the abandoned scriptoriums, cracked dome, your stolen candle, barely denting the gloom. You unroll the forbidden scroll across a desk, still dusty from the last scribe's hasty exit. The quill waits, its starlight tip humming like a trapped hornet. Carthaginian traders once smuggled ink in hollow chicken bones, though experts think that's just poultry folklore. The first stroke crackles, burning the word traitor into parchment. Shadows shiver, forming shapes on the walls. A tiny Julius Caesar puppet stabs a Brutus marionette. Candlelight improv sucks, your collar tightens, stitches pulling like harp strings. Distant laughter floats up, probably that baker tossing burnt loaves again. Medieval scribes used honey in ink for preservation. This stuff smells like regret and burnt sage. Each word glows, searing itself into the scroll. Unbind, remember, shatter. A shadow peels off the wall, morphing into a nun's wimple. Naughty child, using condemned ink, she tusks in old Frankish. Her ghostly fingers flick your ear. Monastic archivists really held grudges. You dip the quill again, starlight dripping like liquid mercury. The candle flame leans sideways, drawn to the truth words. Somewhere a page from the library of Alexandria burns forever. Historians still bicker if Caesar torched it on purpose or just misplaced his reading lamp. The shadow nun hisses, dissolving as you scrawl Mark Antony's ships docked at Actium. Wait, irrelevant. The ink thinks otherwise. Letters rearrange themselves, spelling Lepidus owed 3 goats for that phallic weather vane. Ancient bureaucracy, always itemized. Sweat rolls down your nose. The candle's wax forms a tiny scale, justice weighing a crown against a sheep's bladder. You write faster, ink sizzling. The quill's heat blisters your palm. Mice scatter as the scroll levitates, pages rustling like autumn leaves. Finally, the confession you didn't know you carried. A king's mouth speaks, but his collar thinks. The words wriggle, aligning into a map. Your left boot sticks to the floor, trapped in centuries-old spilled wine. The starlight dims, moon veiled by clouds shaped like disapproving librarians. You spit on the quill tip. Big mistake. The ink erupts, coating your face in shimmering grievances. Vision blurs. Now you're a Mina bird reciting lost treaties. State secrets taste like overcooked lentils. The candle sputters, flame shrinking to a nervous ember. Footsteps echo in the hallway. Not guards. 2 rhythmic tap 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 of a peregrine's talons. The window bursts open, wind scattering scrolls. A screech. The ink lifts your hand, forcing one final word. Unspool. The parchment ignites, truths spiraling upward in smoke rings. The candle dies with a sigh. Somewhere, a dozen monks sneeze in unison as regrets fade from their chronicles. Your collar's threads hum, then snap. Cedar resin stings your palms as the box resists opening, its hinges crusted with generations of broken promises. A splinter pricks your thumb, 99 heartbeats thudding against your ribs. Russian woodworkers first carved nested dolls in the late 1800s, though none bled like this. The smallest doll's face swims into view, tears pooling in its walnut-sized palms. Its rosewood cheeks flush when you poke them, a cursed babushka blushing at your rudeness. Legend claims an entire Romanov choir once hid inside a 7-layered mother-of-pearl matryoshka. This one hisses. You peel layers faster, skin catching on jagged edges. Each doll wears a diminishing crown, gold leaf flaking like dried yolk. 39 layers down, a shock of red hair. Historians still feud whether nested dolls stole their design from Japanese death masks. That debate smells of varnish and wounded pride. The 19th doll shatters, wet clay oozing from its hollow belly. A key glints inside, filigree teeth shaped like your father's last smile. Your initials hide beneath the lid, carved deep by unsteady hands. Tool marks suggest the carpenter worked upside down, possibly dangling from a barn rafter. Mice scatter as you fit the key into your collar's lock, metal screeching like a martyred tea kettle. 40 years back, cabinet makers dipped tools in holy water to mute vengeful spirits. The 11th doll giggles when the mechanism clicks. Cold air rushes into your lungs, first unguarded breath since the crowning ceremony. The box's bottom panel slides free, revealing baby teeth stitched into a map of the city's sewers. 16th century dentists used children's molars as currency during grain shortages. These still smell of burnt milk. Layer 53 sticks, its wood fused by what looks like petrified grief. You tap it against the floor, 3 quick raps. Behind the storeroom wall, something taps back. 12 pulses, Morse code for liar. The final doll fits in your palm, no larger than a hazelnut. Its ivory face lacks eyes, just smooth weeping sockets. 5th dynasty Egyptians buried sightless dolls to confuse tomb raiders. This one vibrates, humming a lullaby your wet nurse sang. Distorted reflections warp in the doll's lacquer, your face stretching into a stranger's smirk. Someone carved bonus features, a hidden hinge beneath the keyhole. Prying it open rewards you with moth wings and a love letter to your great-grandmother. Ink bleeds through the parchment, each word dissolving as you read. Mid-Victorian suitors perfected disappearing proposals using lemon juice and despair. Your collar's lock clicks shut again, trapping 3 strands of silver hair inside. The box reassembles itself, dolls stacking with military precision. Their collective wail harmonizes with the night watchman's drunk ballad downstairs. You pocket the eyeless doll, its chill seeping through your tunic. 3 drops of wax seal the lid, each sizzling as they hit the wood. Dawn scratches at the boarded windows, its light carving the carpenter's initials into the far wall. 99 shadows dance across the grain, tiny fists pounding against the morning. 99 shadows still pulse on the wall when the first grain strikes your forehead, hot sand falling upward. The council chamber's marble floor dissolves, its tiles curling like burnt parchment. Arab traders once carried hourglasses filled with black sand from Icelandic volcanoes to time royal audiences. This sand smells of cheap perfume and broken contracts. A child's laugh loops behind you, high and sticky as honeycomb. You pivot too fast, knee cracking like a walnut. Medieval Benedictine monks allegedly invented the hourglass to ration gruel rants. This reversal feels personal. The chamber walls drip away, revealing a nursery papered with peeling star charts. Your boyhood desk sits askew, its legs chewed by a long-dead terrier. A miniature collar rests atop splintered wood, crude embroidery, spelling Herald in training. Historians still argue whether 14th century councils timed speeches with hourglasses or just enjoyed watching nobles sweat. Sand grains now hover at eye level, each fleck reflecting a different regret. One shows you burning scrolls, another a councilman's hand slipping you silver. 16th century forgers used suspended sand to detect document tampering through timed drying. You swat at the visions, they reform faster. The child version of you materializes, fingers fumbling with crimson thread. His needle pierces the linen collar, stitches lumpy as tadpoles. Your throat tightens, muscles remembering the first day it clamped shut. Venetian doges once forced messengers to wear spiked collars that bled during lies. This one stings worse. He holds up his handiwork, a lopsided knot dripping wax. They said you'd forget. The boy whispers, voice layered with generations of dead heralds. His teeth glow faintly blue, a trait your family blamed on well water. Later tests showed arsenic in the estate's mortar. Sand grinds to a halt mid-air grains, forming a suspended river. Your child self points at the frozen cascade. That's when she stopped singing, he says, kicking a dust bunny shaped like your mother's favorite harp. Musicologists recently proved some lullabies contain encrypted blacksmith patterns for lockpicking. You hope he's tone deaf. The nursery darkens, cobwebs sprouting hourglasses where toys once lay. Each glass contains a different colored sand, one blood red, others murky green. Archaeologists found 200-hour capacity timekeepers in a Mongolian warlord's tomb, still trickling after 7 centuries. These new ones hum with contained fury. Your younger hands tug the finished collar around his neck, the clasp snapping without mercy. A painted moon on the ceiling cracks open, raining shredded proclamations. Dutch forgers in the 1600s smuggled treaties inside hollow lunar maps. These papers taste of salted ink and panic. The boy struggles to breathe, fingernails carving crescents into his palms. You try to shout a warning, your adult voice erased from this timeline. They always jump here, murmurs a new shadow, its silhouette matching your first royal tutor. His pocket watch oozes eel blood. Sand reverses again, grains sucking back into the shattered ceiling. The nursery reassembles itself in broken pieces, a dollhouse missing crucial walls. Your collar itches with phantom embroidery. The boy winks, mouthing "watch the hinges," before dissolving into a pile of moth wings. Silence follows, the oppressive kind that lives behind tapestries. Then, 3 floors below, a door slams. Someone's brewing licorice root tea with extra gunpowder. Your left pinky twitches, the same way it did during your inaugural lie to the crown. The hourglass sand erupts into a miniature blizzard, each grain singing a different national anthem. Morning light stab through the last intact window, its beam hitting the discarded collar. The stitches now form your mother's handwriting. Promise me you'll bend. Siege engineers during the Albigensian Crusade encoded surrender terms in embroidery. You pick at the threads. They burn like frozen iron. When the final grain clicks into place, you're back in the present, kneeling on council chamber tiles. Your official collar hangs loose, 3 threads dangling where the child's not used to sit. Far off, or maybe deep within a terrier barks, its collar jingles with 99 tiny keys. Dawn licks the eastern watchtower as you stumble into a fog thicker than royal porridge. The vanished bridge materializes stone by stone, each slab groaning like a tired historian. Masons in olden Egypt supposedly mixed Nile mud with crushed moonstone for ceremonial arches. This one reeks of wet papyrus and broken betrothals. Your boot finds the first moss-slick step, the entire structure humming a dirge in Dorian mode. 18th century music theorists claimed that scale could liquefactor marble if sustained. These stones aren't melting, they're gossiping. A bass line rumble beneath your feet spells out son of me knees, 3rd syllable vibrating your fillings. Halfway across, the fog parts to reveal hieroglyphs weeping rust-colored tears. One cartouche shows a prince submerged beneath lotus petals, his attendants holding snorkels fashioned from hollow reeds. Archaeologists found a child-sized golden snorkel in a flooded tomb near Abydos, likely ceremonial. This prince's eyes scream unlikely. The mist congeals into a figure blocking your path, translucent and smelling of fermented figs. Its crown lists sideways, a style favored by 11th dynasty nobles after too much palm wine. 18 steps remain, its slurs pointing at stones that definitely weren't there seconds ago. Your collar's loose threads twitch. They remember this game. New glyphs ignite along the parapet, each symbol cracking like overbaked clay. A baboon-headed glyph mutters. They sank his barge with the wedding gifts still aboard. As you pass, records show an Egyptian king's heir died, inspecting flood-damaged granaries. But court poets sang of river nymphs' jealousy. Your left heel starts sinking into the bridge, the stone gone quicksand soft. You lunge for solid footing, fingernails scraping at a relief of upside-down chariots. The snorkel prince's image bubbles up beneath your palm, mouth moving in a silent plea. During Napoleonic expeditions, scholars noted hieroglyphs that changed positions under moonlight. These ones rewrite themselves into a shopping list for betrayal, linen, resin, 3 kisses. The fog phantom reappears, now holding an ankh made of candle wax. Promises weigh more in mist. It croaks, dropping the symbol through the bridge. The falling ankh ignites midway, revealing a glimmer of rushing water below. 17th century London had a tavern where patrons threw promises into the Thames for good luck. You wonder who fishes them up. 7 steps from the far bank, the stones begin chanting in Coptic. Your childhood Latin tutor's voice overlaps, drilling declensions into the humid air. A disjointed verse emerges. The drowned keep time in swallowed breath, unspeaking tongues mend broken depth. Linguists still debate whether ancient Egyptian puns work in Aramaic. Your ribs ache with the bridge's vibrations, each note a remembered vow. The final slab sports a handprint glowing like spoiled milk. You press your palm to it. The bridge exhales a millennium's worth of held breath. A tiny snorkel washes up at your feet, twisted from silver and regret. As the fog dissipates, you spot the eastern watchtower again. Its reflection in the river below shows 6 extra windows, each lit with a blue-flamed candle. Your collar flaps loose in the sudden breeze, one thread snagging on the snorkel's mouthpiece. It comes away dyed indigo, the shade reserved for royal stillbirth announcements. Somewhere downstream, a terrier's bark echoes off waterlogged stones. The bridge dissolves behind you, its final whisper tasting of silt and unsent letters. Threads writhe like snakes in a quicksilver puddle as you stagger into the weaver's den. Your collar twitches, its loose fibers straining toward a loom that clatters with no one at the treadles. Medieval weavers soaked wool in urine to fix dyes. The stench here confirms the practice never died. A half-woven tapestry shows the eastern watchtower, its stones bleeding indigo into your cloak's torn hem. Rows of spools spin themselves raw, flax unraveling faster than palace gossip. You step over a puddle of resin, amber goo clinging like royal decree glue. 12 shades of betrayal in the warp, croaks a shadow hunched over lightning-shaped shuttles. Her needle stabs cloth with alarming accuracy, each puncture leaving a tiny scorch mark. The air thickens with burnt cattail down a fringe theory, claims certain weavers could spin smoke into binding vows. Your eyes water as threads form the number 63 above the tower's peak. Historians still argue whether knotted tapestries were olden encryption. This one clearly states duplicity in 9 languages, all spelled with hangman gallows. A rogue spindle rolls toward you, trailing yarn that knots itself midair. You leap back as it weaves a miniature noose, the fibers your exact chestnut brown. Mistakes get recycled, rasps the weaver, now upside down in the rafters. She spits on her palms, a trick Renaissance fabric merchants used to test silk quality. The loom's batten slams down, imprinting the tower's reflection from the river. 6 new windows bloom, each glowing with fish-scale translucence. A thread snakes around your wrist, pulling you toward the tapestry's jagged edge. 14th century weavers' guilds find members for reckless pattern forecasting. This feels criminal. You grab scissors crusted with nacre dust, only to find them stitching instead of cutting. The blades suture your sleeve to a bolt of cloth smelling of Nile silt. Proper tools for proper tongues. The woman hisses, her needles now suspended in levitating formation. One plunges toward your collar, halting a hair's breadth from the frayed edge. Her feverish eyes track the trembling needle, its eye threaded with your own gray hairs. Dark for light, she chants, plucking a lyre-strung warp thread. The vibration unspools memories of the bridge's snorkeled prince, his wedding gifts rotting in silt. The needle pierces cloth and your fingertip simultaneously. Blood blooms on linen, the exact maroon of expired Senate decrees. The weaver cackles, her breath reeking of fermented pomegranate seeds. Ottoman divination texts describe reading fate in dye spills. This stain's edges form a crown cracked down the middle, third fracture still bleeding. Something in the room's north corner hums like a beehive trapped behind glass. You kick over a basket, releasing moths that instantly swarm the tapestry. Their wings etch new glyphs over the tower, a baboon-headed judge holding scales of feathers and ink. The weaver howls her hair, unraveling into copper wire. You dive for the clogged fireplace, ash swirling into a miniature sandstorm. 18th century chimney sweeps whispered of finding ancestor messages in soot. These cinders paint the snorkel prince's face, his mouth moving in perfect sync with yours. Smoke curls into your collar's stitches, dyeing them tempest black. The fever breaks when you hurl a dye pot through the window, glass shattering into 7 years of bad luck. Cold night air rushes in, solidifying the chaos into a frozen tableau. The tapestry lies completed, no tower visible anymore, just endless columns of numbers marching toward a smudged horizon. Your stolen scissors finally cut, releasing you from silk restraints. The weaver's needles now rest in a bowl of curdled milk, steaming faintly. You pocket a stray shuttle carved with 3 interlocked serpents. Its warmth suggests it won't stay stolen for long. As you flee, the looms resume clattering behind you. A single thread trails from your hem, writing accusations in the mud with every step. It spells meanies backwards twice before snapping clean. Somewhere beyond the river, indigo candles gutter out one by one. Your fingers brush cold stone where the cobblestones remember Roman sandals, each groove a fossilized march. Dawn licks at the marketplace's edges, stalls still shuttered like clenched teeth. That stolen shuttle burns against your thigh, 3 serpent coils branding through fabric. You need a loaf's worth of flour dust from your tunic. Medieval bakers paid taxes in bread stamps. The motion dislodges a coin from your cuff, gold catching first light like a wink. It's heavier than its size suggests, the weight of signed pardons inked on vellum, now ash. Renaissance bankers balanced these on dove feather scales to test purity. Yours bears a three-tailed hound, symbol even fringe numismatists swear appeared only before royal assassinations. Your palm itches where the metal sits, heat rising like a marshland fever. Stall shutters slam open in unison, startling a pigeon mid-defecation on a spice merchant's awning. Fine day for numismatic tragedies. Calls a cobbler dangling shoes from a fishing rod. You pocket the coin too late. The cobbler's grin widens, gold flecks where teeth should be. Advice costs nothing. He croons, knife paring leather into prison bar shapes. But truths, those chew through purses. The coin sears your thigh now, a branding iron made by Egyptian kings, exiled smiths. You duck into an olive oil stall, crushing basil under heel to mask your scent. Shelves display amphory labeled with ratios, 3 parts lies to 1 part virgin press. The owner hums while decanting, florid notes about Phoenician trade routes dissolving into gibberish. Blistering heat crawls up your side, the coin pulsing like a second heart. Historians still argue whether ancient mints embedded messages in reeded edges. You roll the disc between thumb and forefinger, edges splitting open like a fig. 7 minuscule scrolls spill into your palm, each declaring menad in insect-like script. A child bumps your elbow, sending the scrolls fluttering into a gutter slurry. Their mother drags them away, apron embroidered with the weaver's 3-serpent motif. The cobbler's laugh follows you down Bishop's Alley, where rain barrels overflow with suspect broth. You clutch the coin tighter, metallic aftertaste blooming under your tongue. 3 streets later, the gold cools abruptly. Your palm throbs, skin etched, with symbols mirroring the locket's lost pearl. 16th century quack doctors mapped ailments onto hand lines. These marks chart the eastern watchtower stairwell, and a cellar where moth-eaten flags reek of saltpeter. A patrol clinks past, helmets stuffed with mulberry leaves to muffle noise. You press against a tavern's sweating wall, its sign creaking the mute judge. The coin sticks to your palm, now the icy burn of winter patents. Through a warped window, a scribe dips quills in wine while transcribing laws backward. The etchings shift, showing a dagger lodged between the tower's 8th and 9th stones. Your collar sags, threads straining toward the southern sewage grate. You pocket the coin, its message spent. 3 drops of blood hit the cobblestones, each boiling away before impact. At the plaza's dry fountain, a beggar offers to read curses and childbirths through your shoe soles. You decline, but she snatches your left boot anyway. Meanie's curse walks cradled in arch sweat. She mutters, thumb rubbing the instep. Paid the ferryman with stolen teeth, didn't you? The coin activates again, burn scar fingerprints searing into your calf. You kick free, earning a hissed prophecy about eels and crown silk. The boot's sole flap reveals a hidden compartment empty, but for nail fragments. 17th century mercenaries hid map shards there. The sour stench suggests yours carried frog poison. Sunlight crests the toll tower, its shadow slicing the market into light and law. The coin hums a lullaby in High Dutch, tune used to calm rioters during bread revolts. Your hand blisters as new etchings emerge, a list of names beginning with your grandfather's alias. 3 black-robed clerks cross the square, ledgers chained to their belts. Their collars gleam starch-white, threads straining toward your malfunctioning relic. You duck behind a statue's plinth, its plaque stolen for scrap bronze decades ago. The coin drills into your palm, droplets of liquid gold pooling in your lifeline. Release comes as a butcher's boy spills offal across the clerk's path, sending them slipping in gore. You sprint toward tanneries, their reek overwhelming, even the coin's metallic stink. The shop facing north displays a lion pelt, muzzle sewn shut with harp strings. In the tannery's acid, haze workers scrub hides with urine-soaked pumice. You rinse your hand in a vat, the coin's brand dissolving like ink in spirits. 16th century alchemists chased that reaction, believing it proved Mercury's matrimony to moonlight. Your skin emerges unmarked, palm creased only by old calluses. The coin lies inert at the vat's bottom, three-tailed hound smiling through suds. Lost something, Collar-Mending. Growls a tanner whose neck bears your father's sword scar. His mallet taps a rhythm, matching the patrol's earlier footsteps. You claim ignorance, backing toward fermenting pits bubbling with questionable marrow. He lets you leave, but not before palming the coin himself. His scream follows you through the alley, a wet gurgle as gold fuses to flesh. The sound carves itself into your spine's fourth vertebra, perfectly mirroring the etchings now erased. You emerge where canal waters swallow sins for 8 coppers a bucket. 3 eunuch boatmen poling past toss pebbles at your feet, each skipping 7 times. The ripples rearrange into a date, tomorrow's sunfall, marked in frog spawn and regret. Someone's heating broth in a rooftop kitchen, sage and betrayal wafting down. Your stomach growls, a feline sound that startled 7 emperors to early graves. The coin's absence lightens your stride, though your right boot now squelches with phantom liquid. By the time the cathedral bells misfire their noon chorus, you're cresting a hill where wind erases footprints. The city sprawls below, a tapestry of oaths and enameled lies. Your collar sags loose, threads whispering north toward the tower's hidden blade. One tug would unravel it completely. You keep walking. The south road narrows, crumbling edges kissing a ravine where crusaders once dumped betrayers. Your boot dislodges a pebble. It plummets without sound. Ahead, something blocks the path where 3 ancient oaks form a ragged arch. Not something, someone's war mastiff, muscles coiled like siege engines under mangy fur. Its collar glints, same bronze links as yours, Same missing third stitch above the clasp. The beast's breath rumbles, a sound felt in molars rather than heard. You freeze medieval trackers fitted dogs with spiked neckbands to gut wolves. This one's spikes have been filed down or worn away. Easy, you murmur, voice lighter than a spice merchant's conscience. The dog cocks its head, left ear twitching at the honorific. Historians still argue whether war hounds recognized noble blood or just the tang of fierce wet. Your collar sways, threads lifting toward the beast's scarred muzzle. It takes a step, pause, leaving scorch marks on dew-slick stone. 3 ribs protrude, counting the days since its last meal. You unclasp your cloak slowly, grateful Renaissance tailors added hidden pockets for exactly not this. Dried venison emerges, and the mastiff's growl dips into a wine. Not poisoned, you promise, tossing the meat halfway. Experts think Roman generals let dogs sample their meals first. 2 consuls reportedly died laughing at the practice. The mastiff sniffs, then devours the strip without chewing. Its collar flares, light revealing etched names along the inner rim. Your own throat tightens, recognizing the script. Same hand that penned your oath papers 20 winters back. The dog sits abruptly, discarded battle training resurfacing. Its tail sweeps dirt in precise arcs, left, right, left. A signal, or just fleas. A breeze carries the reek of burning cedar. Watchtower signal fires, prepping for dusk. The mastiff's eyes blaze brighter, coals stoked by unseen bellows. You kneel, palms up like a supplicant before Toulouse's relic hounds. The beast snuffles your collar, teeth grazing the frayed threads. One tug could part them. Neither of you breathes. Somewhere, a nightjar calls, its cry warped by the ravine into something mournful. The mastiff retreats, dropping a mucus-slick pebble at your feet. You pocket it without looking, texture suggesting a pawnshop token. 3 barks echo from the valley, too rhythmic for instinct. The dog whips around, haunches trembling with conflicting impulses. Its collar emits a high whine, pitch matching the unsung 3rd verse of Greenwood Tree. Olden kennel masters used that ballad to calm hounds during thunderstorms. You stand, dusting off knees cut by the road's hunger. Lead or follow. The mastiff exhales, a sigh that withers nearby chickweed. Then it lopes eastward, pausing just once to ensure you're tracking its path. The pebble burns through your pocket lining, etching what feels like coordinates. Sunset bleeds across the cliffs, hinting at tomorrow's stinging winds. You count 16 new blisters before the dog halts at a rotted bridge. Its planks sport fresh claw marks, parallel grooves screaming turn back. The mastiff lies down, nose pressed to the abyss. Reward or punishment? Your collar threads twist, knotting themselves into a crude map of the chasm. The missing stitch gapes like an unmarked tomb. You kneel beside the hound, its heat warding off the gulch's chill. Together then, you whisper and step onto wood that shouldn't hold a cat's weight. The mastiff follows, each pawful precise as a scribe's punctuation. Midway, the bridge groans, a sound felt in molars rather than heard. The bridge shudders, another plank surrendering to rot beneath your heel. The mastiff's claws skitter, finding purchase on rusted iron rivets. Your forearm scrapes a support beam, weeping splinters carve a new scar. Fresh blood beads, and the wound glows faintly, charting pale tributaries across your skin. Well, that's new, you mutter, watching old cuts flare in response. 16 winters back, a dagger kiss here from a spurned tax collector. 8 summers ago, a burn there from forge embers. Each mark now pulses, connecting into a jagged constellation. The mastiff whines, sniffing your glowing wrist like it's smelling north. Midnight black water churns 60 feet below, a Roman cistern drowned when aqueducts fell. Scholars call it engineering failure, but your scars tighten when you think it. The dog lunges, yanking you sideways as the central span collapses. Together, you clutch a dangling beam, fingers raw against moss-slick metal. Your newest scar throbs, its light arcing toward a fissure in the cliffside. Down there, the mastiff's tail thumps once, detonating dust from the rotting wood. You exhale, clambering toward the glow, as medieval masons' hymns echo in your skull. Every third scar aligns, pointing to handholds last touched when crusaders sealed this vault. The beast follows, snarling at shadows that twist away from your pulsating wounds. You hit damp stone, facing a mosaic buried for 800 years. A forgotten emperor rides a chariot pulled by dogs, mastiffs, judging by the jowls. Historians still argue whether the 4th century cannies imperi bred real warhounds or just symbolized paranoia. Your scars blaze brighter, redirecting to a crack behind the mosaic. The mastiff rams it, shouldering aside rubble with a hunter's patience. Inside waits a tunnel, its ceiling studded with bioluminescent fungi. You pluck a glowing mushroom, earning a growl. What? It's not poison ivy. The dog sneezes, ancient spores swirling like drowned stars. Half a mile deeper, your body's map flares crimson at a submerged doorway. The mastiff dives first, obsidian fur blending with the water. You follow, cold shock sinking your scars into a throbbing compass. 11 seconds under, then up into air thick with rotting papyrus and beeswax. A circular chamber rises, walls covered in precise scars, matching your own. Someone's cataloged them all, raised flesh, translated into carved stone. The mastiff licks a particular groove, triggering a mechanism. Clay tablets spill forth, each stamped with a collar's silhouette. You crouch, translating Akkadian curses with fingers that still remember childhood tutors. Turns out the 3rd stitch isn't missing, it migrated. Your collar's absent thread thrums, vibrating in sync with the deepest scar over your heart. The mastiff yawns, expelling a moth that alights on your collarbone. Its wings mirror your scar map, veins crafting a route to the chamber's far wall. You press a palm there, finding stone warm as living flesh. The mastiff watches, waiting. Your scars ache like bad weather as the wall dissolves into ash. Beyond lies darkness, and a scent even older than the cistern's gloom, wet limestone, crushed thyme, and the metallic whisper of buried keys. The beast noses your hand, its collar glowing with the same fractured light as your skin. Together, you step into the ink, guided by wounds that remember what minds cannot. The darkness parts like old parchment, revealing shelves cluttered with clay jars and vials. Your scars dim as the mastiff sniffs a cracked ampule, its contents dried to purple dust. You reach for a glowing bottle, then freeze. The label curls, inking itself fresh as you watch. Dreamless tincture for chroniclers who see too deep. Terrifying branding. You mutter, plucking the phial from its nest of bandages. The glass thrums, casting furnace orange light across sigils carved into your forearm. Scholars once thought Roman sleep tonics used poppy extract, but this reeks of fermented figs and crushed nightshade. The mastiff sneezes, a sound like a bellows collapsing. A scroll unfurls at your touch, its Greek text shifting into your mother tongue. Warning: prolonged use may cause the rest scratches itself out. You pocket 3 vials anyway, because when has ignoring red flags ever steered you wrong? The mastiff's ears flatten as glass clinks, its collar sparking like flint on steel. Deeper in the chamber, a physician's skeleton slumps at a writing desk. Finger bones clutch a stylus mid-sentence. The 3rd dose renders patience. The tablet ends there. His skull tilts, empty sockets following your movements. You nod politely. Been there. The tonic warms your palm, pulsing in time to crumbling mortar overhead. Medieval plague doctors believed bad dreams spread through cheek moles, but this bruise label suggests sharper truths. The mastiff growls, nudging your elbow toward a wall carved with intersecting scars. Your own marks itch in response, a phantom needle dragging through flesh. You uncork the bottle, smoke tendrils lick your wrist. 18th century quacks sold somnolent salts made from borax and lies. Yet this vapor smells of your childhood nursery, honeyed milk, lullabies in a dead dialect. Your knees buckle, and you're sprawled on cold limestone, the mastiff's teeth buried in your cloak collar. The phial rolls away, spilling liquid that etches a map into the floor. The dog barks once, a sound that shakes dust from ceiling mosaics. Okay. Message received. You scramble up, noticing new symbols fluorescing in your scars. The spill's pattern mirrors the delete gate's ruins near Carthage, where Hannibal's archivists supposedly burned inconvenient truths. Historians still argue whether the gate was library or mass tomb. Your throbbing palm votes both. The skeleton's stylus clatters, making the mastiff leap sideways into a bronze instrument tray. Forceps fly, clattering like a drunk minstrel's finale. You pocket a scalpel etched with Benedictus, the third's royal seal, poisoned snooze juice, and purloined surgery tools. This'll go great at customs. A fresco looms, depicting patients strapped to marble slabs as physicians chant. Their collars lack the third stitch, just like yours. One figure's face matches your reflection, down to the eyebrow scar from that alehouse brawl. The mastiff whines, nudging a hidden lever with its nose. The wall pivots, revealing a bathhouse-sized mortar and pestle, dried herbs crusted sides. You recognize valerian and something spiky. Crusaders called that one Satan's toothpick, though modern herbalists name it Erodium machatum. The mastiff sneezes, stirring up pollen that glitters like cursed glitter. Your scars flare, guiding your hand to a compartment beneath the pestle. Inside waits a doll-sized physician's kit, complete with bloodletting fleams and a mercury-filled thermometer. You chuckle. Everybody needs a hobby. The mastiff's stare suggests it preferred you on tonic. Moonlight slices through a cracked ceiling, illuminating stone tablets stacked like unplayed dominoes. Each bears a prescription for restlessness caused by royal secrets. Dosage adjusted per treason severity. You trace the Phoenician glyphs, then freeze. One entry lists your exact scar pattern under side effects. The mastiff barks at shadows coalescing near the skeleton. Phantoms flicker, robed figures arguing over a body on the slab. Their Latin explodes into modern slang. Bro really tried to drink the whole vial. Laughter fades as your scars ignite, burning the vision away. You retreat, backing into a cabinet of pickled things. One jar holds eyeballs that track your movement. Another swirls with hair braids tied in sailor's knots. The mastiff plants itself between you and the specimens, growling at a fetus floating in greenish brine. Dawn's first light bleeds through cracks, turning potion bottles into stained glass. Your boot crunches a dried leaf, and the room sighs. Wall carvings ripple, showing physicians throughout eras. A Victorian woman in blood-stained silk, a Ming Dynasty scholar with acupuncture needles, all whispering warnings you can't hear. The mastiff herds you toward an archway veiled in spider silk. Beyond it, daybreak gilds the city's western slums. You glance back. The skeleton now holds a quill between its teeth. The final vial burns in your pocket. As your newest scar writes itself below your collarbone, crimson ink, sketching a key inside a heart. The beast noses your trembling hand, its breath warm against the still searing mark. Somewhere below, a door slams. Water rushes through pipes that haven't flowed in lifetimes. The tonic's label itches against your thigh, and your tongue tingles with words the city tried to bury. Moonlight slants through the theater's shattered dome, dust motes dancing where spotlights once blazed. Your boots sink into velvet cushions gone to rot. The sour tang of mold and mothballs stinging your nose. Collarless mannequins sprawl across the stage, limbs frozen mid-gesture, their necks ending in jagged fabric tears. You crouch to examine one, and its hollow throat hums the opening notes of your morning proclamation. Cute trick, you mutter, voice bouncing off decayed murals of forgotten tragedies. Roman theaters drilled holes in the floors to amplify whispers. But these boards groan with something older. A mannequin's hand twitches, pointing to a prop chest overflowing with cloth collars. Each bears the city's crest and teeth marks. You lift a collar stiff with age, only to drop it as phantom voices erupt. A dozen declarations overlap, tax hikes and grain reports and betrothal announcements, all muffled like screams underwater. One line echoes clear: the 5th garrison will dismantle at dawn. You wrote that yesterday. A moth-eaten curtain ripples, revealing more mannequins hanging by wires from the rafters. Their torsos swing gently, creating a macabre wind chime of hollow wood and clinking brass fasteners. Victorians loved trapdoors for ghostly entrances. But these puppets seem to wait for your exit. The nearest figure's face crumbles at your touch, sawdust spilling from its jaw. Inside the cavity glows a wax tablet, etched with today's cancelled edict about well inspections. Your thumb smears the words, they reform in different ink. Historians still debate whether Greek choruses warned rulers or mocked them. The answer's scritching itself into your collarbone. You climb onto the stage, planks bowing like they've missed the weight of liars. The spotlight mechanism creaks alive, a cracked lens filtering moonlight into sickly green. 3 mannequins jerk upright, miming your habitual gestures. Flattened palms for calm, the chopping hand for executions, that awkward wrist flick you do when lying about crop yields. A trapdoor bangs open, wafting up the stench of wet ink and rodent bones. Below, a pit of scrolls nod into confetti. You kneel, and a mannequin's arm snakes around your throat in a fabric noose. Its hum drops to a growl, vibrating through your molars. 17th century puppeteers used catgut strings for sinister verisimilitude. But you've read enough nursery rhymes about talking dolls. Release. The command tears loose, unwritten and unbidden, charring your lips. The arm goes limp. Paper scraps swirl into a miniature cyclone, spelling absolution before disintegrating. A prop crown clatters to your feet, crawling with silverfish that flee from your pant cuffs. You pocket a dagger-shaped letter opener from the prompter's box, its handle sticky with resin. The mannequins track your movement, wooden joints clicking like a clock counting down. Their hum harmonizes with your pulse, creating a lullaby that makes your eyelids leaden. You bite your cheek, copper sharpness grounding you in the stink of rosin and rebellion. Backstage mirrors hang shattered, except one pane showing your reflection collarless. You lean closer, and mirrored, you presses a splintered hand through the glass. Real blood wells where their fingernails graze your jaw. Some believed crossroads theaters were soul markets, but this feels more like jury duty. A child-sized mannequin tugs your cloak, leading you to a wardrobe rack of ceremonial robes. Each left sleeve bears a hidden patch, your meticulous stitching, replicating the palace emblem. The smallest robe fits perfectly, itchy, wool scratching your scars into a phantom map. Its collar stiffens like a noose, then softens when you hum the third verse of the blacksmith's chant. Moonlight dies abruptly, footsteps clattering in the ruined balcony. You duck behind a scrim painted with laughing nobles, their faces scratched out. Wine sloshes. A man's voice slurs. They say the Herald's hiding here. Ice crystallizes in your gut until his companion giggles. Nah, that wisp couldn't mend a sock. The mannequin's still. Wait, you wait harder. When drunkards shuffle out, you exhale, and the whole stage exhales with you. Curtains collapse. Plaster cherubs faceplint into aisles. A single spotlight beam survives, catching the apology letter you never sent to the soap maker's widow. Dawn stains the eastern sky as you exit, crunching playbills underfoot. The mannequin's hum fades, replaced by actual birdsong. Your collar feels lighter, though that might be the missing button. Somewhere beneath the stage, 1,000 shredded edicts rustle like leaves, or snakes. Honestly, with your luck, probably snakes. The wax drips sideways, defying physics and common sense as you hunch over the stolen ledger. Your breath makes the flame shiver, or maybe it's laughing. 17th century candle makers added gunpowder for dramatic flair during treaty signings, which explains the scorch marks on the Magna Carta's less famous cousin. One shadow stretches toward the hearth, the other claws up the wall like ink through water. Together, they box you between speak and remember. Pick a damn lane, you growl, knuckles whitening around the quill. The flame splits with a sound like tearing parchment. Twin tongues, now one blue-white, the other bruise-purple. Shadows solidify into figures straddling the ledger. Left one's got your father's crow's feet. Right one wears your first dagger at its hip, handle chewed by a long dead terrier. Blue flame crackles, cough up those trade roots you've been hoarding. Purple licks your wrist, keep them buried, let the consortium choke on their greed. Wax webs your boots to the floorboards, colonial punishment for debtors. Your pinky nail picks at the seal of a wine-smeared contract. Ottoman peace terms were sealed with sesame paste when wax ran low, a fact that won't help you now. Left shadow leans in reeking of peppermint and panic sweat. They'll hang your messenger boy first. You know this. Its finger leaves a frost trail across the grain prices. Right shadow flicks a rat's skull off the desk. Siama's still got that butcher knife you lent her. Just saying. You bite through the quill, splinters pricking your tongue. The inkwell's gone viscous. Smells like fermented approval stamps. A draft slithers under the door, carrying tavern music and the wet dog stench of regret. Shadows start singing your childhood lullaby in round. Their harmony unearths a memory 9 years old, hiding mutton scraps under your penalty notices. Enough. You slam the ledger shut, snuffing blue shadow mid-gloat. Purple winks out, but its afterimage lingers like a wine stain. Wax thickens around your ankles, now flecked with what might be saffron or fool's gold. The candle itself has halved in size, paying the rent. As Auntie Bren used to say, before selling bad futures to sailors. A moth kamikazes into the flame, briefly illuminating the ceiling's water stains. They map out the silk road if you squint, or a noose if you don't. The ledger creaks open on its own pages, fanning, until they settle on your inheritance deed. The wax circle tightens, cooling into something between amber and armor. You press your palm to the blue candle drip, pain rising in sweet waves. Little known fact. Pre-Reformation, nuns used menstrual blood as invisible ink for dissenting pamphlets. The parchment drinks your oath before you've spoken it, words blooming rust red across clauses 8 through 12. Shadows dissolve as the flame gutters. But not before blue flips you a gesture that make a longshoreman blush. Your freed legs wobble, though that could be the 3 sleepless nights. The ledger slithers into your satchel, suddenly heavier, like it ate a brick of shame. Outside, rain peppers the tavern's sign until its motto drips away. All that remains, why IBBI, could be prophetic, could be wood rot. Either way, you mimic that apothecary from Nantes who sold confidence in aluminum vials, shoulders back, steps brisk, utterly full of it. The wax bracelets stay fused to your wrists, clicking like a librarian's stamp. At the crossroads, a one-eared cat trots past with your quill in its jaws. You almost warn it about the splinters, but sweetens the deal. Strides quicken toward the docks, where 3 ships float under borrowed flags. Somewhere behind you, a baker's hammer thwacks dough, a sound suspiciously like guilty, guilty, guilty. Your nostrils flare at the tang of rising sourdough, or maybe rising opportunity. By dawn, this choice will crust over like yesterday's bread. But for now, let them wonder which ingredient you've omitted. The workshop door groans like a dying pendulum, its hinges choked with verdigris. Inside, a forest of stopped clocks. Their hands form a unified accusation, all snapped at midnight's fatal jolt. You trip over a gear the size of a dinner plate, its teeth still chewing ghostly minutes. 16th century Black Forest clockmakers lubricated gears with rendered wolf fat for timeliness under lunar duress. The air tastes like tin and impatience. A mantle clock coughs, its pine casing split like an overripe fig. Inside, 3 brass moths flutter against the escapement. Their wings click against the pallet fork, tick, tick, tick. Not real insects. Not entirely. One lands on your collar, scattering tarnish flakes that itch like unkept promises. The back wall shudders. A grandfather clock yawns open, revealing a cavity stuffed with parchment birds. Their folded wings bear sketches. Your face at 17, your predecessor's sigil. A blindfolded judge eating figs. The smell hits dried ink and fermented plum pits. Historians still debate whether medieval timekeepers moonlighted as royal spies. Those adjustments to the town's square clock weren't just about solar noon. You press a palm to the frozen timepiece's face, glass colder than a frost fair vendor's grin. The minute hand twitches, splinters your thumbnail. Blood beads in the Roman numerals. IV becomes VV becomes VI. A tiny hammer awakens, tapping Morse code on the hour bell. FRELIAR, you flinch. The L's wrong. Always the damn L dust swirls into a figure by the repair bench, see-through, but solid enough to scatter the moths. Its fingers move, threading a hairspring through non-existent tweezers. Above the bench, a vulture skull hung with 13 pocket watches hums a dies ire dirge. The figure points to your wax-crusted wrists, then to a wall of pendulum bobs shaped like hanged men. Not here for repairs. You lie, voice smudged as a proofreader's draft. The figure tilts its head, gestures, to a steam clock wheezing in the corner. Its copper belly bulges with something living. The glass hatch vibrates, fogged by hot breath. You count 3 heartbeats before realizing it's keeping tempo with your own. A cuckoo bursts from a shattered clock face, beak crammed with licorice roots. It drops them into your satchel before dive-bombing the vulture skull. The figure slams a chisel into the workbench, splitting a whalebone gear cleaner down the middle. Inside, nesting dolls of diminishing saints, each clutching broken mainsprings. The workshop darkens. Clocks begin striking in reverse order, 11, 9, 4, as the floor tilts toward yesterday. You grab a chain of fusee cords, burning your palms on century-old resentment. London's clockmakers. Company once required members to only mend timepieces during lunar eclipses. Because why make sense when you can make folklore? The grandfather clock regurgitates a scroll, landing at your feet with a wet slap. Unfurled, it reveals your own handwriting from last summer. Every 7th word's been replaced with silence. The tiny hammer strikes the bell again, chipping off a crescent of bronze. It lands in your boot, searing through leather to brand the sole. Gears grind louder, sparking where teeth meet truth. The figure shoves a crowbar into your grip, handle notched with 73 prior last resorts. You jam it into the steam clock's shuddering belly. A hiss, then a groan, then silence thick enough to spread on toast. The clock splits, releasing a trapped sigh that smells of violet powder and subpoenas. A child's shoe clatters out, then a moth-eaten manifesto, then a choir of scribes, nibs scratching tin. The figure dissolves into oil droplets, each reflecting a different moon phase. You pocket 3 screws from the whalebone gear, still warm with old rage. As you retreat, the cuckoo stuffs licorice into the grandfather clock's maw. The workshop door swings shut, leaving an invitation in the dust. A single smoked glass numeral, VII, might be a threat, might be a dinner reservation. You crush the bronze crescent under heel. Let its shards punctuate the cobblestones behind you. Rain starts slanted enough to rewrite your shadow. Somewhere behind dripping eaves, 11 clocks strike proper midnight at once. They sound relieved. Rainwater pools between cobblestones, mirroring the frenzy above. You step into the square, and the puddle shatters into 1,000 running silhouettes. No words, just feet, hundreds stamping in perfect offbeat rhythm, a thundering cardiac arrhythmia. Your collar's inner lining chafes, stitches reknitting themselves against your pulse. Someone throws a cabbage. It arcs splatting near the dry fountain where three kings once dissolved treaties with a handshake. Welcome to medieval diplomacy, where produce was the original rebuttal button. The crowd parts, revealing a stone etched with 13 notches. Rotterdam's Oud Haven kept a riot tally carved by paranoid magistrates, each mark matching a dashed-off love letter found in the mayor's desk 3 centuries later. A child weaves through legs, thrusting a reed flute into your hand. Its holes are stained with pomegranate juice. You blow, no sound emerges. The crowd stills. Faces turn. Your collar cinches tighter, knots grinding like a Byzantine tax collector's abacus. From the western alley, a cart creaks. Its cargo, 74 identical brass bells, each clapper wrapped in lamb's wool. The cart horse wears a blindfold embroidered with your initials. Historians still argue whether the great peasants' revolt began with a misplaced bell order or a particularly provocative sheaf of wheat. The fountain gargles, spitting up a corked bottle. Inside, a scroll declaring everything fine in 6 languages, and one poorly drawn owl. You pocket it, fingers brushing the reed flute's silent mouthpiece. The crowd resumes pounding boots, synchronizing with the distant drip-drip-drip of eaves. A hand grabs your elbow cold as a Saxon burial horde. You whirl, meeting a toothless grin. Stitched the wrong loyalty into your throat, the crone croaks, dropping a lump of beeswax into your satchel. Cost you 13 sugars next time. Your collar thrums, threads plucking at sweat-slick skin. You remember the fishmonger's daughter, years back, teaching you 9 ways to tie a noose. For emergencies, she'd winked scaling a mackerel with ceremonial precision. The memory curdles, twists, becomes the crunch of gravel under shifting feet. The crone vanishes, replaced by a patch of clover growing between stones. 16 leaves, 1 for each suppressed riot in the city's ledgers. You crouch plucking a leaf. It dissolves into charcoal dust mid-stem. The crowd's roar crests, a visceral whoo shaking shop signs. Above the gallows platform groans under phantom weight. No rope swings, just 17 crows perched in judgment. One drops a molted feather, black evolving to gold mid-descent. You catch it, the veins slicing your palm. Blood dots the cobbles, forming a shaky L, always the damn L. A butcher's boy shoves past, bruising your ribs with a wrapped haunch. The cloth slips, revealing a pork knuckle and a coil of hemp rope. For interpretive dance, he yells, already swallowed by the throng. 13 women begin clapping in 7/8 time, their palms red from yesterday's divats. Your collar now bites the jawline, edges fraying into cursive script. Obey, obey, obey. The words prickle ink, seeping into stubble. You fumble for the reed flute, jam it between collar and neck. A sour note wails, scattering the crows. The square freezes. 2,000 eyes lock onto you. Someone sneezes, the sound echoing like a cannon salute. Your left boot sole peels, exposing the brand from last week's clockwork mishap. The scarred I glows, projecting a slanted IV on the magistrate's house facade. A rock flies, shattering the projection. Cheers erupt, half feral, half terrified. Hands hoist you onto the dry fountain's edge. The vantage reveals a pattern bodies moving in concentric circles, a human lumen craze. Your collar constricts, threads now woven through your vocal cords. You inhale to shout, protest, anything. The reed flute splinters. Splinters become syllables. Syllables become a single throttled word, enough silence. A sizzle cuts through the scent of burnt sugar. Your collar softens, knots unraveling into a necktie of faded velveteen. The crowd exhales, a gust scattering tavern menus and lost gloves. Someone starts humming a lullaby in pig Latin. Another joins. Soon the square thrums with mispronounced comfort. You touch your throat, find 2 copper coins fused to the clavicle. Ottoman-era currency, dated 12 years after the empire fell. Historians still whisper about the phantom mints that operated beneath Istanbul's baths. But that's a hangnail for another day. As the crowd disperses, singing backwards epithets, you spot a familiar stain near the apothecary. Grape must and axle grease, the same cocktail that soaked your Herald's cloak during the Great Plum Riot. You kneel, press a finger to the splotch. It smears into a perfect semicolon. The crows return, dropping feathers like pushpins on a war map. Gold again, always gold. You gather 7, tucking them into your bloodied collar lining. They bristle, then soften, settling into the shape of half-forgotten advice from a tightrope walker. Never face the crowd in socks. Bells toll, unwrapped now, their clappers thrumming through the humid air. You count the peals. Stop at 33. The exact number of buttons on your predecessor's favorite doublet. The exact weight in stones of the lies you've swallowed. Dusk bleeds into the square, street lamps flickering on with bureaucratic reluctance. Your shadow stretches toward the eastern gate, then snaps back, rebelling against the light's trajectory. The collar hangs loose. For now, dawn claws through shutters, razor-thin and jaundiced. Your needle hovers above the collar's last fray, a rebellious loop resisting repair. Thread trembles not from your hand, but the cloth itself. You press. The eye of the needle catches dawn's first proper light, and the linen parts like a conspirator spilling secrets. The snapped thread whips upward, singing a high C sharp. Your ears pop. Somewhere, a bakery's clay oven cracks clean down the middle. Across the city, 73 cats yowl in unison. You half expect a chorus line of terriers, but get only the thump of your own pulse. Medieval monks would have killed for that pitch, their Gregorian chants leaning hard on off-key farm boys. 3 stitches remain, each bite of fabric releasing a different scent. First, rust or maybe blood left in the dye vat from yesterday's disaster. Second, burnt almonds. Third, your mother's rosewater soap, the cheap kind nobles sneered at while their silks gave them rashes. A moth dives at the collar, wings beating in 5/4 time. You swat, miss, tear the last loop. The collar goes slack, thread slithering across the table like a stunned adder. It coils around your inkwell, spelling out a word in Gallic cursive. Can't read it. Never took Latin, just that elective on Byzantine tax evasion. The thread snaps taut, yanking the inkwell off the ledge. It shatters, jet black goo oozing into floor cracks, shaped like the city's founding map. Exactly 17 districts, including the one they erased after the Peat Bog uprising. Your great-granddad's journals mentioned that pages riddled with suspiciously tidy burn holes. Light shifts, projecting your shadow onto the far wall. It's not yours. Too tall, wearing what looks like a papal tiara. When you cough, it scratches its nose. Historians still argue whether medieval shadow plays were entertainment or clumsy surveillance by pre-camera regimes. Tonight, both. Always both. You grab the needle again. It's warm now, like it's been left in sunlight. But the window faces north. Always has. Your thumb finds an engraving near the eye, tiny interlocking V's. Venetian glassblowers used that mark during the War of the Buckets, a conflict that started over a missing mop and ended with a pickle barrel blockade. The final stitch pierces and the room inhales. Dust motes freeze mid-swirl. Your childhood bed materializes in the corner, blankets folded military tight. The scent of pine pitch floods your sinuses. Someone's laughing, a wet chuckle from the mortar between stones. Thread tightens, not through your effort. The collar stitches itself, the needle dragging your hand like a marionette. Each pull etches a year into your forearm. 1441, 1492, 1588. Numbers bloom and fade, leaving faint brands that throb in time with the abbey's absent bells. Moth wings brush your nape, the insect, now the size of a dinner plate. Its proboscis drips something fluorescent. You duck, spine pressing into cold plaster. The shadow pope points accusingly, its mitre tilting like a sinking ship. The last knot forms. Silence. Then a sigh. Not yours, not the moth's. Something older than the sewage tunnels beneath your feet. It unravels louder shaking rain from last week's storm out of the gutters. Windows rattle. A neighbor's goat starts bleating Scarborough Fair in perfect pitch. Should have seen that coming. Ethnomusicology journals wrote 3 papers on livestock choirs last year alone. Sunlight solidifies, gilding the mendied collar. The shadow pope bows dissolving into floorboards. You half expect applause. What you get? A faint clinking from the alley, like someone's chiseling wartime soup recipes into copper slag. Thread ends dangle, kissing your collarbones. They crumble to ash as you breathe. Someone's cooking ham 2 streets over the grease smoke, weaving into a portrait of your first kiss. Marco from the tannery. 13 years old. Both of you sticky with stolen honey. His lips tasted of liverwurst and poor decisions. The moth dies spectacularly, bursting into cerulean flames mid-flight. It leaves no corpse, just a grease stain shaped like the city's first well. Of course, archaeologists found 700 teeth in that well last summer, all molars, all from left jaws. The mayor called it dental drift. You call it the reason you drink. Velvet slithers against your throat, the collar settling into its final shape. No embroidery, just a faint hum when you turn your head west, toward the river, toward the spot where 12 barges sank under the weight of smuggled pewter thimbles. A knock shakes the door, 3 staccato raps, followed by 2 languid drags. The fishmonger's daughter's code. She left town 8 years ago, swearing allegiance to a traveling puppet troupe. You open it anyway. A badger stands upright, holding a miniature throne made of dried apricots. It nods, places the throne at your feet, and dissolves into a puddle of lukewarm chowder. The collar vibrates, translating. They're coming. Chowder seeps into your boots, smelling of saffron and bad news. You close the door, lean against peeling paint. The collar's hum rises to a drone, the same pitch as beehives before they swarm. Your reflection in the shattered inkwell shows a stranger, jaw set like a knight's visor. The collar has no clasps now, no seams, just a single embroidered eye winking from your Adam's apple. Dawn bleeds into proper morning. Somewhere, an unseen child starts whistling greensleeves through their nose. The collar squeezes once, and you know what comes next. Mending's done. Time to unravel. The collar splits open, not with a snap, but like overripe fruit surrendering to gravity. Gold embroidery withers, threads shriveling into charcoal dust that stings like pepper. Your throat remembers the weight, phantom pressure, lingering like a lover's goodbye. Across the room, the shattered inkwell shudders, its spilled contents racing backward into unbroken glass. Medieval scribes called this reductio ad calamum, the return to the pen, though most just blamed cheap wine for spilled archives. Rain pauses mid-fall outside, each droplet a floating prism. Through them, you see the city square reshape itself. Cobblestones bloom into looms, weaving tapestries from dawn mist. A baker's cart rolls uphill without horses, its wheels spinning on axle grease made of melted wax seals. The missing third stitch from your collar materializes, now a viper coiled around the alderman's weather vane. It hisses a nursery rhyme in Old Norse. Of course, footsteps echo not from the street, but beneath your boots. The floorboards transparent now, revealing catacombs where shadows kneel before stone spinning wheels. Their shuttles click-clack, using cobweb thread to darn the city's foundation cracks. You taste copper, realize you're grinning. Somewhere, a goose honks the opening bars of Carmina Burana. The last collar fragment dissolves, stitches retreating into your skin like sea worms at low tide. Neck bare, you feel 17 again. Reckless, allergic to fig preserves. The wardrobe mirror reflects not you, but a mural of workers dismantling a stone tower. Each block floats away, inscribed with grievances from dead heralds. Turner's complaint, too many Thursdays. Margrave's addendum, apologies to the badgers. Warmth pools in your palms, gravity reversed. Ashes from the dead moth swirl upward, coalescing into a scroll. It unfurls with a sound like celery stalks, snapping, revealing a map inked with fermentation bubbles. The mead halls here, the tanneries there, and between them, a pulsing X marks the spot where you buried that cursed harmonica at 14. Archaeologists would kill for this chart, too bad it's dissolving into dandelion fluff. A church bell groans, one rusty clang, before its rope tangles into a noose. The sound ripples outward, shaking apples from market stalls. Each fruit bounces 3 times, then sprouts legs, scurrying toward the river like crimson crabs. You spot the fishmonger's daughter wading upstream, her puppet show, abandoned for spearfishing pickled onions. She salutes you with a jar labeled dearest regrets. Breath comes easier now, air sweet, with illegal honey from the abbey's smuggler bees. The scarred mastiff trots by, its collar missing too. It drops a clay tablet at your feet, cuneiform nonsense on one side, a crude dickbutt drawing on the reverse. Ah, Sumerians invented that meme. Eat your heart out, Twitter. Chimneys exhale snow, white flurries sticking to roads in spiral patterns. A child builds a snowman with your face, using raisins for the crow's feet. At least they're generous with the coal hair. Across the alley, the shadow pope resurfaces, now juggling 3 human teeth and a radish. You throw a walnut. It passes through him, hitting a passing nun who thanks you for the snack. Laughter erupts from the dry well, its echo shaping into a lullaby about tax evasion. Silly, but catchy. You hum along, matching the rhythm of pulsing scars on your forearm. The map of wounds glows warmer near the butcher's shop cooler, by the miller's gout-stained hammock. Might use this later, if the aprons don't chase you off for borrowing their sausages last winter. Bells toll noon, except it's clearly dusk. The sun glitches, flickering between sunset and high noon like a confused stage light. Stars appear arranged in the exact pattern of your first collar's embroidery. Historians still argue whether 15th century astrologers could predict Wi-Fi passwords. But that's the baker's problem now. Cobblestones soften, squelching underfoot as you stride toward the river. The water parts, revealing a stone tablet all 7th graders touch on field trips. Its inscription, just a grocery list. Time, sacrificial lambs. Lube, priests made bank selling holy water here, secretly drawn from a pub's ale cask. Genius, if you ignore the yeast infections. The scarred mastiff reappears, sans dickbutt, dragging a quilt stitched from retired flags. It drapes the fabric over a sleeping beggar, whose snores harmonize with the wind through rye fields. He rips a monstrous fart, the vibration toppling 3 pottery jugs. Mozart used that chord progression in Lech mich I am Arsch. High art. Threads burst from your pores, each glinting like obsidian wire. They tether to chimney stacks, bridges, even a drunk's suspenders. No pain, just the tug of 50,000 stories snapping taut. A toddler's first steps here, a widow's last curse there, all thrumming through your marrow. You inhale and taste the war-torn honeycomb from chapter 12. The loom beneath City Hall groans, its final tapestry depicting your face beside Cleopatra's. Okay, maybe just her favorite scribe. Still, crowdfunding a Sphinx visit seems excessive. Lightning forks upward from ground to sky, cauterizing a cloud shaped like your mother's disapproving frown. Rain resumes, each drop etching equations onto mud. Solve for x, where x is the number of lies that'll fit in a thimble. Math was never your strong suit. The viper uncoils from the weather vane, popping into confetti that smells of burnt hair. Children scramble to catch pieces, ignoring their mother's shouts about incendiary party favors. One snippet hits a hay cart, blazing into the word guiltless above the flames. The alderman faints, his wig catching fire, but he needed the trim anyway. Your boots sink into the square, muddying into a quagmire that whispers family secrets. Aunt Lena's third husband was actually a territorial goose. Makes sense. Those side eyes killed geraniums. At the river's edge, the collar's remnants swirl downstream, reforming into a fishing net. It drifts past 12 sunken barges, snagging pewter thimbles that clink like drunk church bells. The fishmonger's daughter gut slides into the current, her onion spear impaling a trout mid-jump. Dinner sorted. Threads fray, snapping one by one, each break a tiny grief and relief. The scarred mastiff howls, the shadow pope does jazz hands. A splinter group of rats sings Danny Boy in round. When the last thread parts, you're just you again. Ink-stained, slightly gassy, fond of mismatched socks. The city breathes louder now, less herald, more chorus. Somewhere, a loom's shuttle falls silent, its weaver whistling as 50,000 threads wriggle into soil. Tulips sprout by the docks, their petals printed with yesterday's proclamations. Fresh starts smell like parchment and wet dog. You pat your neck smooth as the day you were collared. The sun commits to dusk, paints the rooftops marmalade. A bat swoops by dropping a scroll case into your palm. Inside, a single mustard seed and a coupon for half-off shoe repairs. Supper bells ring. Streets fill with chatter about rain clouds, rotten turnips, that weird flicker in the sky. Normalcy's a burr under the saddle, but not tonight. You pocket the mustard seed, a cheeky backup plan, and head toward the mead hall. Behind you, in the dirt where the collar fell, a single stitch takes root. By dawn it'll be a sapling with bark like braille. The first word reads begin. The collar's absence breathes against your neck, cool as river mist on a pardoned wrist. Floating prisms melt into dusk, each raindrop pooling, light into puddles of liquid amber. Cobblestones still hum with loom song, gentler now, a lullaby spun from mended foundations. You kneel, fingers brushing the place where thread met flesh. Soil whispers its warmth, spelling enough in root tongue. The mastiff trots close, its muzzle frosted with snowflakes and candied regrets. It licks your palm, copper tang sweetening to maple syrup. Across the square, the shadow pope dissolves into a cloud of dandelion seeds, each one a tiny vow of silence. Laughter lingers in the well, its last note a yawn. Your scars dim to peach pink, mapping not pain, but forgotten birthdays and misplaced keys. Threads still tethering chimneys sway like seaweed, their hum harmonizing with creaking tavern signs. A toddler's forgotten mitten sprouts violets their petals, reciting nursery rhymes in braille. You pocket one, a pressed memory for leaner moons. The sapling's braille bark pulses, soft as a napping rabbit's flank. Dawn's first moth alights on its lone leaf, wings powdered with indecipherable runes. Somewhere, a loom shuts its eye weaver's hands, folding into prayer. You exhale, letting go of collar dust and Thursday grievances. Wind carries the scent of unbaked bread, dough rising in rhythm with your pulse. Street lamps flicker, not from magic, but squirrels gnawing copper wires. Normalcy fits loose now, a borrowed cloak you might return by winter. The fishmonger's daughter waves, her jar of pickled regrets glowing like a lantern. You nod, no words needed. Sock-clad and slightly gassy, you turn toward the mead hall's honeyed glow. Behind you, the sapling's roots twitch, nudging a thimble of lies into fertile soil. Stars blink arranged as they were before collars, before pens, before the weight of other people's Sundays. Your shadow stretches long, ink-faint, almost merciful. The bat circles once, drops a hazelnut, then vanishes into a smudge of cinnamon sky. Supper bells fade, replaced by owl calls and the musk of drowsy sparrows. You hesitate just once to press a palm to the braille sapling. It thrums, a single word swelling under your touch. Enough. The rest is silence.